Okay. Welcome, everyone, on this gloomy Wednesday night. There's no Olympics, there's no NHL. The best place to be is here tonight. So tonight we're going to talk about the jewel of the community, the Revelstoke Forum. And before I start with introductions, I was thinking how to start off tonight. And I'm trying to think, okay, what are two words that best describe the Revelstoke Forum? And I think you would agree that these two words sum it up perfectly. First word is vibe. The atmosphere of a place is communicated to and felt by others. And the second word is soul. An intangible spiritual component of a human being, sometimes associated with breath. Now, we've revised that in Revelstoke. In Revelstoke, soul means an intangible spiritual component of a public place, sometimes associated with the Revelstoke Forum. So tonight, we're going to have an in-depth discussion about the facility we all love, but recognizing that time, like anything, and as a 61-year-old, I don't have the movement I used to have, and the Revelstoke Forum is getting on in age. So tonight we brought a group of very qualified expert panel members who are experienced in this industry, plus our staff that work at the City of Revelstoke. Welcome, folks. Just come on in, grab a chair. My name is Evan Parliament. I work at the City of Revelstoke. Play old-timers hockey, big rabid Grizzlies fan. Spent a lot of time in the arena in my soon-to-be 4 years. Over to my far right is Lori Donato, who's the Director of Parks, Recreation, and Culture. Next to, my eyeglasses are not in. Next to Lori, April. Yes, April Creighton, who's joining us. She's a professional engineer. We also have Steve Black, Director of Engineering and Public Works. We have Kenny Gips, Senior Building Official, Manager of Development Services. There could be, I know we have some elected officials here tonight. If you could stand, I see Councillor Palmer, Councillor Orlando, and Councillor Cherry. Is Tyler here? Not yet. We'll introduce Tyler when he gets here. Perfect. So before I do the introduction of our speakers tonight, just sort of summarize why we're here tonight. First of all, there's been some real hard work being done by what we call the Multi-Purpose Facility Committee. I believe there's 25, 26, 27 members from users right across this community, not just hockey or not just curling, but every sport and activity imaginable. They've been working hard on a soon-to-be-released survey that's going out on March the 2nd. This survey is asking the community to weigh in on a new facility and also weigh in on the fate of the Revelstoke Forum. The bottom line is the city is remaining neutral on this. Council is exploring all options. We need to have you folks fill out that survey. It's only 10 minutes, but there's a lot of information in there. And if you're opposed to a new facility, let us know. If you want council to focus on the Revelstoke Forum with all its challenges, let us know. If you're looking at a new facility, there's all kinds of options for you to participate. Ideally, I'd love to hit 1,000 survey results to give council a good indication, understanding of what the community is looking for. What we don't want is to have 200-300 come back where it does not represent the general population. So if we can get minimum 800 to 1,000, that would be ideal. So March 2nd, look for that survey. It'll be posted all around the community, a QR code like tonight. For those that are savvy with their phones, just scan and there you go. It's only about 10 minutes. If you'd like to get a copy of the survey and you can't find it, don't use a phone, contact any of us at the city. We'll make sure you get your survey, even if it's in printed format. Prior to the survey, the committee, and led by one particular member, is Gail here tonight? Gail's not here. So Gail Bernacki is a member of the committee, and she said repeatedly in our meetings, what about the Revelstoke Forum? We need to report out to the public and explain exactly the fate of the Revelstoke Forum. A lot of us at the city understand and know the background and the reports dating back 30, 35 years, but a lot of folks don't know. And I thought it was a great question, which leads to tonight. And so that's why we're here. We're only going to talk about the Revelstoke Forum tonight. We're going to talk a little bit about taxation at the end to give a better understanding. How much is this going to cost and what does it mean to the average taxpayer? Because at the end of the day, that's the fundamental question. And we want to give you as much information so you can make an informed decision when you participate in the survey. All right, enough about me and the city of Revelstoke. How about our expert panel members? To my immediate right is Stefan Anderson. He has worked for years with Watson Engineering. He is now a free agent, I believe. And he knows this facility quite well, dating back to reports as far back as 1988. To his immediate right is Vicki Topping, who is an architect for a firm based out of Vernon called MQN Architects. She authored the 2022 Facility Code Assessment Report. To Vicki's right is the President CAO Grayback Construction. They have provided us an assessment of the forum and a Class D cost estimate. Class D cost estimate is a rough estimate, and as you go from C to B to A would be tender documents, fixed costs. So we're at the stage where we're just exploring a rough estimate. Matt and his team, also to his right is Terry Rogers, will be speaking to that. And April over on the far side has worked with that team as well. And our final speaker is Robin Zernheld, professional engineer from ISL Engineering. That's to the left of Kenny over there. He worked on and is intimate with the Fernie project and what the community of Fernie dealt with their arena. So he'll speak to his work in Fernie. With that, the format is this. We're going to roughly have 20 minutes from each speaker, maybe an hour and a half, and then we're going to open it up to a Q&A so you can participate. There's two ways to participate on the question and answer. Old school, I call it the Peter Bernacki way. You get up and you go to the microphone. But Peter, you go to the microphone once, not twice. I'll let him go twice. You just simply go up to the microphone, queue up, and we'll make sure your question is asked and answered. A second way, and the more technological, advanced way, is you'll see the QR code. For those that aren't comfortable speaking, simply scan that QR code. It'll take you to the Slido app, and you can ask the question on the phone, and it'll be beamed up on the big screen. I don't believe your name will be released. You can do anonymous, but we'll make sure your question on the Slido app is answered. If we don't get to all the questions tonight, because it's registered, we'll make sure we get you the answer, all time permitting. Okay? And then we'll just do a quick 10-minute summary at the end. Hopefully be out of here by 9:15. That's the plan. With that, I am going to ask Stefan to come forward and start the presentation. And again, you can hold your questions to the end. I just want to let all the speakers go first, and then we'll do the Q&A. Thank you. Yep. Right on.
I need Lori's bringing up the laptop for me to present my thing here. So just a brief history. I used to work with Watson Engineering. Watson Engineering is no more. One of the engineers passed away last month in January. So, and we were looking after the arena and looking after all the bridges here in town for the city, a bunch of different engineering projects. So that's where I'm a free agent. I'm basically here by myself to let you guys know what I've seen since 2012, since I first started looking at this. Almost every year. I think there was a year or two that was skipped since then. Last time was in September, October 2024 was the last inspection that was done. It's going to be based on looking at the glue lambs and all the diagonals in the bridge that you see there, or the truss of the roof. Yeah, we'll keep moving here, see if I can make this work here. So I kind of want to keep this a little basic. If you don't know what a glue lamb is, it's laminated boards, and they're glued together, and they form a single mass instead of one board. It's all the calculations are based on the bigger version of that. So when we started looking at this in 2012, then it was noticed that there was quite a few cracks on the outside, on the exterior. If historically it had been gone back to 88 is the first report I can find from us, from John Watson, who looked at it first. He had looked at it prior to that, but we couldn't find anything, and he's 92. I asked him if he had any information. He wasn't sure. He vaguely remembered. And he was basing his stuff off of a report from 64. So those are all available. The city has them, and you can peruse through those to see where things are going. But I know there was some problems early on with the roof, and basically the safety factor, I guess, diminishes because the published snow load in the building code keeps rising almost every year, and pretty soon your safety factor diminishes, and things become structurally deficient, I guess you could say. Anyway, so that's the glue lamb there. You can see on the picture, that's the bottom cord, which, so I'll just show you a quick side view of the trusses. So there's 9 of these. The bottom cord is well, here, let me see if I can this little guy here. See if I can make this work here. It can work. Come on. There. So that guy there, that's the bottom cord. And it's in 2 pieces, so it's bolted together in the middle. And then the top cord is, they're arched a little bit, and it's also in 2 pieces, and it's bolted together in the middle, and then there's a steel plate that divides that. And these here are the side plates, and they're also made out of glue lamb pieces. So as I go through my little spiel here, we'll talk a little bit about these things. And these are all the timber diagonals in between, and then you'll see the rest of the roof structure there. So that's the kind of thing I'm going to focus on here, and that's what I've been looking at for many years, and it's what's in all the reports. So we'll go through that real quick. And this is the layout. So if you do read the reports and you get into that, you'll see it. C is this is the lobby. That's the end wall, and then it's D, E, F, G, H, J, K, J. It skips a letter in there somewhere, and then they're 1, 2, 3, 4. The grid lines go that way. So when I do my inspection, I pick one area. I go up in the lift and look at everything, and then I got to go down and go up and down. So at the end of the day, there's almost 3,600 things to look at. So this is an example of one of the trusses. This is truss number, or letter F, so it's the third one in from the lobby. You'll notice so this was done in 2024, in September and October 2024. You'll see that there's 34 new cracks compared to the year before. And the one thing that stood out to me this time was all these circled areas are the areas that were previously didn't have anything in it. And now the cracks and the laminations are starting to show up in areas that had nothing. So as you go through the report, there's a bunch of those. I'm just going to use this one as an example for the rest of them. The yellow part here, this part also stood out to me, where before there was nothing up here. And if I can skip to the next thing, that's a detail of there. At the very top, this is where I say the top chord comes together. There's a steel plate in here, and all these cracks here are new. They're almost hard to see. It's hard to take a picture of them, but they are there, and they stood out to me because the cracks they're not in. Most of the cracks in the whole structure are in the glue line. These stood out because they were cutting through the wood on a diagonal like that. A little bit alarming for when I'm looking at things. So those are detailed up close. This is the other side. Shows sort of similar things. Sometimes when you look, I see cracks coming out of the bolt line. Kind of, I think that indicates there's a lot of stress in the bolt, or in the bolt line into the timber. This is so because of the number of cracks. This is showing one crack, but there's several areas where there's several like very many cracks. It's hard to know if they go into the wood a little bit or they go into the wood a lot. So you can see that one is fairly deep. I was trying to quantify do a cross section and try to figure out what kind of percentage of the cross section of the beam has a crack in it, and where the laminates are cracked. And here you can see how it works. So there's that's on one of the plates on the side at the connection in the middle, and you can see the crack goes all the way through, and the feeler gauge is bottomed out. But as I went along, depending on the grain of the wood, you can only get in so far. So this one tells me it's not very deep, but you can see that the crack is quite deep. So we really don't know what the cracks look like. They might not be very deep, or they might be a lot. So without really taking it apart or doing very, very lengthy analysis on this kind of thing, it's hard to know. And then, so I want to talk about the bottom connection here a little bit. This is the plate on the side, as I mentioned there. So if you imagine this is bolted, it's bolted through right here. So bolted through. So there's another one on the other side. And if I go to the next slide here, so this is looking down onto it from above. And it's the same picture, just zoomed in on the right. But right here, if you see that dark patch, you can see the gap between the two. You can see the dark patch right there. That right there is one of these things. It's called a split ring, and they use it to, when you put two boards together, you mount that in the bolt line, and it keeps the boards from shearing apart. I have looked at another location that had these, and there was a gap between the boards, and eventually there was enough pressure to where those let go, and it basically tore apart the wood because you lose traction. Here, for example, you lose, wrong button. Here's what it's supposed to work like, so you have full contact, and then here, where you lose contact, it gets less and less, and then eventually they let go. So, not to be too alarming, but that's one of the things I noticed in, I think, 3 of the trusses. It's not a huge gap, but it's getting that way. And from previous work I've done on other structures, the wood, as it shrinks over time, I did this happened at the Sagebrush Theatre in Kamloops, where built in 1955, and the timbers had shrunk enough to cause this component to fail. There's a lot of these though in the Revelstoke arena, so just because you see one doesn't really mean anything, but it's still fairly concerning. So that's kind of sort of the gist of my thing. There's a lot of cracks that have built up over the years. Like I say, I've been looking at this since 2012. Every year there's always new cracks, and they just keep accumulating. Last year, I was up in the lift, up in the roof, and there was I noticed a popping sound, and I thought it was. I've heard it before, and I always thought it was the sun heating up the roof, and you know how things contract and expand when they warm up. So generally we start at 8 a.m. and go through the day. So I was listening along there, but it turned out that particular day was a day like today, where fairly wet and temperature didn't change much. So sun wasn't out, and there was no wind. So suddenly dawned on me that it's when I tie that together with the amount of cracking going on and accumulating, it really seemed to me, I can't say this 100%, but it really seems to me that there's a large chance that that's the laminations slowly breaking apart. The cracks expanding, like just millimeter by millimeter, I think, as the cracks get bigger and bigger. And we looked at that. We had this Sonus company from Texas come in, and they set up some detectors to see if we could listen to that. And that was kind of the last thing we were into to get done. And then unfortunately my engineer passed away, and we haven't been able to go past that. And now, like I say, Watson Engineering is no more. So that was the last thing. So I want to leave you with that. If you want to go in there when there's nothing going on, no one's playing any hockey, and it's dead quiet in there, spend some time in there. I brought everyone in there this afternoon to kind of point this out, but it's the noise. It's a popping sound. It wasn't really doing anything, so I couldn't. My mission failed, and nobody heard anything. But anyone can go in there and listen to it, and that's what I think is going on. So it's pretty daunting. I totally get that the arena is very important for everyone, but this is as I guess technical as I can get describing what's going on there. So if anyone has any questions about that, feel free to ask later on. And we can go from there, and we'll pass it on.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks everyone.
Thank you, Stefan. Then we'll just go to the reports. Thank you. Poor guy, he's got to talk about glue lam and beams. It's not a real cool topic, but it's a critical one, so thank you. The challenge is always trying to explain it so the rest of us can understand it. We're just waiting for to hook up the computer. I wanted just to show, before we get to our next speaker, the list of the reports that have been done. It's an impressive list that dates back to 1988. Not sure if everyone can read that. These reports are available. When I came here in 2022, I thought there had been a couple of reports spanning the last 10 years, 15 years. I was surprised to see how much effort has gone into doing annual checks, biannual checks on the fate of these beams. And so these reports are available. I also want to address something else, which I forgot. If we can go to the agenda, please. All right, Peter, get ready. I want to address the name of this facility. I am honored that Peter decided to throw my name, unauthorized, unsanctioned, illegal. It's not going to be called Parliament Place. Thank you, Peter. I just want to put that rumor to rest. And what does he do? He shows up tonight with another board. So if you see it floating around, the opinions of Mr. Bernanke don't necessarily represent those of the city of Revelstoke and myself. So thank you, Peter, for that. He did it to get my attention, and he got it. With that, I want to introduce our next speaker, and that is Vicky Topping. Thank you. You can do 5, you can do 10, whatever you need.
All right, let me see if I can do this right. We're going to do, sorry, as I transfer here. Oh, maybe not. All right, this way first. This one, go away. Oh, this is the problem with this. Slide, start from the beginning. There we go. Okay.
Speak into that, yeah. There we go.
Thank you for joining us. If everybody has just arrived, there's cookies off to my left, as well as water, coffee, tea. Feel free. Thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you for showing up. There's more faces than I expected. I'm Vicky Topping, one of the partners at MQN Architects located in Vernon. We've done a few arenas, if you might recall. There's the Langley Event Center, Chilliwack Arena, Moose Jaw, as well as, did I say Langley Event Center? Yes. As well as a few other smaller ones, this Pat Duke Arena renovation, similar to this arena with the 3-pin arch, where we did the renovation for Hawkeysville in 2016. 2016. In any case, I was hired in 2022 to complete an assessment in regards to the building code. And so for those of you who don't know, the building code in British Columbia only came into effect in 1973. Otherwise, it was deemed the national building code, of which this building would have been created to begin with. And so that's where some of the point loads and stuff, snow loads, weren't completely relevant to BC, because the national building code is based out of Ontario. And so some of those components come into play of today's conversation of how BC has grown up into the sense of we have our own building code now, and how we create what we call life safety within a building, and how that helps people egress from a building, exiting. You know, if you notice the new Running Man green signs that came into effect, this new building code, as well as how things are laid out in a building, right? Fire alarms, smoke detectors, all those sorts of things that have come into play. Now houses need to be sprinklered. just because of fire and all those sorts of things that happen to us specifically in British Columbia. And so today I'm just going to go specifically more so about the arena itself. And so I'm going to go through some of what I know of the buildings, the particulars of some of the codes that I'm seeing are not being followed to the current 2024 version, and then some other deficiencies that we're seeing around the building. And so this is the building from 2022. Certainly we come to the building and there's not any sidewalks per se. There's no letdowns up to the building. There's only 2 accessible parking stalls, which you need 8 for the amount of building occupants that you can have in the space. And so where are those going to be held, right? And I know it's an event space and there are certain permits for parking that are allowed, and I would think a large majority of you actually walk to hockey games since you live so close. However, those people that are on the outskirts of town, they'll have to bring their vehicles to the space, right? And so from a bylaw perspective, we're supposed to be able to supply the parking stalls for those people. And they say for every 2 seats, you need to have 1 parking stall. And so for my calculations, there's supposed to be up to 1,300 people in this space. And so that's a lot of parking spots to accommodate. And so I understand that there's the adjacent secondary school and other spaces that are able to accommodate those, but ideally they would be within the site itself. But this site is fairly small, and I don't know how they got away with it way back when. I don't know. Maybe other people bought other property around it. So in any case, there's deficiencies there. It's a workaround. But ideally, we want to make sure that we have those accessible stalls fairly close to the main entry, where there's accessible ramping up. There's about an 8-inch lip to the building, and so it's accommodated by the asphalt that's around the perimeter currently, but not necessarily in the snow. In particular, is it viable, right? So. Other things are signage for accessibility, making sure that those are provided, as well as the new accessible painted components on the asphalt. As we go on, the building is, as we say, a masonry building with these wood arches, these glulam arches, but now with the new building code, we need to make sure that the snow load, which has increased just this last year, probably by 4 times, and Stefan could probably confirm that more so, but in my experience, Pemberton and Whistler and all those people, or towns and jurisdictions are experiencing the same issues, that these snow loads are becoming a concern with older buildings because they can't support the load. We were just talking earlier with the team that the city does test the snow. So they have a scoop of snow and they actually weigh it. And so for every 4 inches that goes onto the arena, they actually have to remove it because it's too heavy. So you think about that in how much your driveway actually would weigh, and you times that by the amount of area that's on the arena, it's a lot of weight, right? And so we're trying to prevent that and helping the structure to survive all that much longer. But if there was a big snowstorm, as of which you guys have experienced in the past, and they're not able to get to it in time, there might be some damage that occurs to the building. The other thing I wanted to point out from this beautiful photo is that it's such a large space, and the code now actually requires the roof to be rated from fire prevention, and currently it is not, because there is no fire suppression in the building. Sure enough, the fire department is within 10 minutes of responding to the facility, but I want to call it blanket that you're seeing on the ceiling right now is more so for acoustics. It's not for fire. Okay? Oh, there we go. And this is your site plan. And so basically, the perimeter, you have very small areas of sidewalks so that people are protected from vehicle traffic. The access to the space from a fire department perspective actually is quite restrictive. We have to provide these turning radiuses of 12 meters to the center line of the road in order for the fire trucks to navigate. I know those drivers are pretty good, and I don't know if there's any of you in the room today, but certainly we have to make sure that those are provided on the site and close to the main entry so that they can look at the control panel, excuse me, to see where the fire is and respond to it quickly. Ideally, we have 4 basic access streets, which is awesome for this building, and I think that's the way they've gotten away with it to date. When I do an assessment, we try to go through the occupant load, and so for every type of usership, I want to call it, of the space, there's a different value I have to assess to it. And so the purple spaces are the change rooms downstairs, the ice rink itself, as well as the pink is your seating areas, fixed seats versus non-fixed seats. The yellow is your corridor spaces where you would actually have exiting routes. So those have to be unobstructed from anything, garbage cans or signage or anything else like that. It has to be clear of a space. And then the blue is more so administrative stuff, so the concession, offices, storage rooms, those sorts of things. And so those have a higher value to it, so there's less people in it. And so the purple spaces have more people. The pink spaces are basically every 16 inches there's a person, side by side by side. And then the blue spaces are, you have equipment in there, right? And furniture and those sorts of components. And so there's going to be 3 or 4, maybe 6 people in there total, right? And so overall, the code is telling me that this building can support 1,300 people. And that's just for a hockey game. And so I have to make sure that the amount of doors, do we have the projector? Oh. The amount of doors that we supply within a building, I know it's hard to see with this one. Oh, the other button. This one? Oh, that's the light. Oh, I see. Sorry, this is not my pointer. Top button. There. So we have all of these doors up here on the top. And so I think there's 10 along the top here. There's 2 doors up top here. 2 sets, I should say, 2 sets of double doors. And then there's a double set down here by the washrooms. And then there's a few downstairs, and there's one that comes out around here, I think. And then towards the back, there's a couple of set of double doors as well. And so those are great for that amount of people, which is good. However, they're in fairly poor condition. Most of the accentuator button or bars along the edges of the door, from when I looked at it in 2022, didn't really function properly. And so those upgrades would need to occur. A lot of them don't have door sweeps, so that they're keeping the air in the building or out of the building, one of the two, depending on the season. And some of them require closers so that the door actually closes on itself. And so there would be upgrades for that. Okay? Let me see here. This one looks a little bit fuzzy, but I want to highlight the areas that are bubbled. And so the railings within the building aren't to code. They're not the proper height. They're not graspable. They are too close to the wall in certain cases. They aren't broken up along the whole length of the stairs so that people coming out from the aisles can get through. I would imagine you've seen a few people during hockey games where they're slipping underneath of the railings, right? I do see that there are guardrails in certain areas, but at the top of the concourse where people are hanging over, those actually aren't to code. Because they're climbable, they're not supposed to be, as well as they aren't a solid feature. And so somebody could fall through it, hypothetically, being the devil's advocate, and causing harm to somebody because they fell down the stairs, which could hypothetically cause harm to the city because somebody would sue them, right? So we're trying to prevent those types of things. And then also the stairs. I don't know who in the room has tripped up the stairs when they're at the hockey game. I know I did today. I totally did. And that's because they're too big. They are too high. You know, your average household stair is about 6.5 inches tall, maybe 7.5, depending on what era. These guys are over 8 inches tall. And so for me, being short, 5'6", that up is a little bit higher than I expect. And so I would think that there's some people in the room that would also feel the same way. And then also, the stairs are supposed to be fairly consistent, within 1/16 of an inch, of each other. And so when I looked today, I saw one stair looked to be about 8 inches tall, the next one was 8.5 inches tall, the next one was 7. And you're like, oh my goodness, there's no consistency. Your brain actually tells you that this is going to be a consistent thing. We've been trained since we've been like eons old, right? How to go up a stair. And so your brain is trained to anticipate that they're always going to be 7 inches tall, right? And so I know it's hard to do that, especially with the height of, I want to say, the seats that are adjacent to it. But within the arenas that we have done, it has been achievable. You just have to divide how many stairs you need. So there's some flexibilities with that. As well, the yellow here is representing the washrooms that we currently have within the space. In option 1, let me see here. This is an option that we did. So I keep doing that. There we go. So we have the washrooms currently in this bank towards the bottom left. And so the women's and the men's washrooms currently hold, I think it's 4 urinals and 3 male. And then I think it's 7 female. And so what we require currently is 15 female and 8 male, plus an accessible washroom. And so we are actually deficient by almost half for the washrooms. And so that takes up a lot of space. And then in each one of those, we call them gang washrooms, there is no accessible stall. And within that, we would require for every 10 stalls, one of those actually has to be large enough for an accessible stall, which has grown by 4 inches in each direction with the new code. And so the stalls that you've been experiencing, you know, locally here, they're actually deficient in each direction. So these things are, what did I figure out? 8 feet by 7.5 feet each. But because of the type of facility we have with the arena, you have to have an accessible change table for an adult now, not just babies anymore. And so that takes a lot more space, right? So as we're going along here, we're adding a lot more area to the space that we would utilize somewhere else, right? And so we either have to do the renovation internally, which we're showing here today, or we would have to do an addition to the arena, which is a huge bank of area. So I think I've gone through most of them. So basically washrooms, handrails, stairs, the concourse is too narrow, especially with your new, I want to call it your special highlight people. I want to call it MVP components, the benches on top. And so those are impeding the travel to getting to egress, which is not allowed. So I think that's it. And so you can see, these are from photos of 2022. The chairs are a little old, so the backs aren't as high as what the code requires them to be. The distance from your knees to the back of the chair actually is supposed to be 16 inches, which is not. And then travel distances within the building to get to a door actually exceed what is required by code right now. It's supposed to be less than 30 meters. And there's things like door hardware, fire caulking of things where there's a particular mechanical or electrical room where there's penetrations through the wall. We need to make sure those are sealed up. And then within the washrooms themselves, there should be privacy partitions instead of curtains. I know it's more so for efficiencies, but within this code, you now need all of those privacy components. So, and I don't know, you guys must take a tour of the facility and go down to the change rooms if you haven't. There's this one particular stair which is actually used for the skate sharpening area and storage of all of the cleaning supplies and whatnot. It has impeded into the stairwell enough that you're not able to grab the handrail. There is no nosing strips, so you can see in the dark. The stair risers and runs are all different. And so this particular stair is what we call non-conforming. So, and then the concession area, there needs to be more fire suppression. And the chemicals that are stored there are considered as hazmat, and so they need to be in their own lockable storage room. And yeah, the finishes in the arena are, I want to say, in poor condition. They're certainly still viable, but need to be upgraded, which adds to costs. In any case, I'll pass it on. There we go, sorry. Next.
Thank you, Vicki. So most of us have been part of a renovation before, whether it's your own house or your neighbor's house. In short, the city's learning that to meet the new BC building code, every time you do a renovation, it triggers this, it triggers that, and we have to be mindful of that. And so we're going to talk more about what does that mean in terms of renovation and what needs to be done to bring this building to code. And so with that, I'm going to introduce you to Matt Kenyon, who is the President and CEO of Grayback Construction.
Hi, everybody. Whoa, sorry, loud. Matt, GM Grayback. I've been in the industry since I was a kid. We used to operate a glue lamp plant. We built lots of glue lamp structures, renoed, tore them down, rebuilt them again, and all kinds of stuff. So I've been to the forum 3 or 4 times now, and I must say, after my first trip up to come look at it, to Evan's point, it's beautiful, it's awesome, and I left there going, well, all we really need to do is maybe fix those glue lamp beams. And my first thought on the way down was just either sister them up with more wood, or cheaper yet, clad them with U-channel metal, through bolt them and beef them up. And I was like, well, this shouldn't be the end of the world, and went through that, and that's probably kind of your $1 million fix, let's say. Further to that, I started reading through the Watson reports and the geotech reports, and what we came out of that, as a builder, I'm not an engineer, we just follow the reports and build accordingly. It was pretty clear that following some of Stefan's presentation there, if you caught it, the trusses themselves and the roof structure is about designed for half the snow load of today, roughly half. So when I first looked at just strengthening that one truss, that's not actually enough, because even the purlins in between, there's still too much load on them. So the assumption, I guess, that I've made in this budget before you is essentially to build a in situ steel truss in between each wood truss. And we did a conceptual design in our office, and April gave us a little bit of a hand on some preliminary calcs. And keep in mind, this is preliminary calculations in engineering, and there's multiple ways to do a project. So this is what I think is a responsible budget, and probably the most cost-effective that we could come up with some, I guess, certainty for the town. So we came up with an in situ situation where we could keep the hockey rink open. So our idea was to come in after hockey season, or most of the skating season's done, build the trusses, fab them on the floor, and lift them up through the season. So there'd be about 10 of them, and that's about 300,000 pounds of steel. So that's one component. That's about, $3 million right there of the roof replacement component on this budget you see in front of you. Further to that, the actual foundations that hold those trusses up are under design per the engineer's report. Now, obviously, I don't think anything's actually settled, but you can't really confirm that without digging it right up and the engineers confirming everything. So for the purposes of this budget, I've had to allow it to literally open up a 10-foot by 10-foot piece of slab in the concourse, jackhammer that out, and the foundations, literally the existing foundations we need to add on to, but they're like 10, 12 feet down. So I didn't want to jackhammer the stairs all the way out. So what we allowed, a little less invasive, more predictability, and faster on the schedule, was to just drive 3 or 4 screw piles below each new column, right? And then add on to the foundation and pour those up. So essentially, that's kind of the big fix for the structure that we could come up with. And again, through detailed engineering, more thought going into it, you can refine that. But is it, it could be a little bit worse, a little bit better. So this is, again, Class D budgeting. So that's the big chunk. So we assumed we go in, 2 crews, 2 weeks a section to 3 weeks, and roll through work on these foundations and build the trusses on the ground and follow behind and put those up as we go. Now you've got your main roof structure done. The other issue is the end wall needs restructuring on the steel, just those wood columns, and that's not huge unto itself. And the brick walls that hold the little flat roofs on the side, they're not up to seismic standards, and their foundation is also not up to what it needs to be for the size and the weight it's bearing. So that you have to dig down, add onto the foundation, and I think you're either core filling with concrete or grout in the masonry to give it the strength it needs, or you're essentially putting a steel skeleton on the outside and around. That's essentially the assumption I've made in this budget. And then on the roof, while you restructure it, the roof is near end of life and needs, at some point, probably in the next 3 to 5 years, needs to be replaced anyhow. So that's the other big part of the budget, is just the re-roof, which I understand is probably coming anyways, but if you're gonna be doing all this work in the forum, then you probably want to get the structure fixed first, then put the roof on. And that's literally what makes up the big number of the 9.2, or the 10.7 you see there is all the structuring. It's about 400,000 pounds of structural steel, essentially, that we got to fab up inside the arena and then get it up in the roof. And if you've been obviously everybody in here's been in the forum, digging down 10 feet on that concourse to get at those foundations is not an easy task, but doable. We did look at wood. We looked at a bottom cord, just cable on the trusses. That definitely is an option to help on the existing trusses, but we still need to add an intermediate truss, as far as we know now with the engineering that we have. Then you go down further into the non-negotiable capital upgrades. I mean, non-negotiable, everything's negotiable, obviously, but it's things like, we know the brine lines in the ice plant need to be, there's a leak in the brine lines, so to replace that whole rink surface and the brine lines, that's about 1.8, and that's a specialty company that comes and does that. They put all the pipes in and pour those slabs, and then the dasher boards are $500K to replace with new. What happens though, often you take an old dasher board down. We did it up at another place, and the old ones come down, and they tried to put them up on another location, but their insurance company wouldn't cover them because they're not up to the current standards. So like, they're there now, but you take them down and you want to put them back up again, they're not necessarily up to the standards of for your insurance company and the hockey arena, right? So that's $500,000. Spectator seating, obviously you don't have to do that, but for $60,000 to put new seats in after you've done all this work isn't the thing that's going to break you. And the cooling tower at 200, and that brings us to the 2.5. The non-negotiable building code upgrades is everything Vicky basically just spoke to. I think the cutting point here on the budget is going to be, the biggest uncertainty will be how much upgrading on code requirements do you have to do, and when does that actually trigger? Like if you've got a house or you've pulled a building permit recently and you go in, like I know in Penticton, you want to do one little thing, you can do it, but if you do a reno that's big enough, all of a sudden they want code upgrades all over the place, right? Or if you've owned an old building or renoed your shop or anything like that. So the fine line there is, what's the reasonable spot to cut that off, because it can kind of go on and on and on if you're going to bring it up to right up to today's standards. My hope is that there'd be a little bit of a middle ground, mainly bring that structure up and not have to go all the way with the codes. And that's the sort of budget I presented here. The rest, the soft costs, is your engineers and your architects and city staff costs and everything, insurance, bonding, all of those things. And a project contingency of 15 to 20%. That's a responsible contingency at this stage, like it's really early. You know, the way to get certainty on this budget is to get a team going on actually full design and figuring it out. Obviously, there's a cost to that, so to get the design to the point where somebody like me can get certainty on what it is exactly that we're going to do, you have to take the project a little ways to get to that certainty through the process, and you just keep working your way towards the end goal. And then escalation of 25%, just that's more on just given the last few years, the way the world's been and things bopping up and down like crazy. Obviously, I don't know if you're starting this in 10 years or 2 years or 1 year. So like that you know, the faster you start this, the less escalation would actually apply, right? So that's more of a timing thing in my mind. But at this point, I think you definitely have a responsible budget to keep the forum kind of going. And then you just work from there and dial it in. I think that's all I have until you pepper me with a million questions, which is all good. That's what I'm here for.
Thanks, Matt.
Okay.
Yeah, don't go anywhere, Matt. There will be questions, for sure. And so what we're looking at on the screen there is roughly 26, 27 million with escalation built in. So again, if we were to start tomorrow, hopefully the escalation wouldn't be as high. It is a crazy world. There has been some price compression. There's a correction in the market right now. We're all aware of it with the condo prices. However, we're not ready to break ground yet. And so that's the number we're looking at. It's not just the roof. And it's the uncertainty of the code upgrades, and we need to make sure we're dialed in so you folks know exactly what the cost would be if we choose to renovate the forum. Life expectancy after renovations, anywhere from 10, 15, 20 years. New construction, of course, would be double that. And so we have to be cognizant of how much money to spend in renovations versus new construction, and we'll talk about that. But tonight primarily is about the Revelstoke Forum. With that, our last speaker. Anything, Terry? No, we're good? Our last speaker is all the way from, I believe, Canmore, Alberta? Williams Lake? Williams Lake. Robin spent some time working on a similar project in Fernie. I know Fernie has been referenced a lot, being a resort municipality. We're just glad that he made an effort to drive all the way here to Revelstoke. So with that, I'll call upon Robin.
Coming through. I can't get down there. All right. I've been asked to come and speak about the Fernie Arena as a case study, as it's been referenced. So I'll start with a little bit about who I am, I guess background, and then why we're talking about it. I'm a structural engineer. I've made a career of designing structural buildings of all sorts, but in particular looking at old timber structures and evaluating them and in some case reinforcing them. And then we'll talk about some of the solutions that came up for the Fernie Arena and how that may or may not be applicable in the context we have here. I'll put a caveat on that I don't know the Revelstoke Forum building very well. I've had the opportunity to scan a few of the reports that have been presented, and I've had the opportunity to walk through it. But I haven't done any analysis, I haven't done any design, and I don't have a whole lot of context to speak to that building in particular. Give a little bit of background, but why would we review a building and how the building code treats things, and then I'll talk about and show a few slides on Fernie. So why would a municipality review building as part of asset management? And as you saw the reports from Watson, there's been a fair effort in that as managing the asset. If somebody saw something that was concerning, that'd be another reason to have an engineering review. Or if there are known concerns, and I would put the Revelstoke Forum in the category of known concerns given the previous reports and code reviews. And not necessarily because the building code has changed, although when we go to make a large intervention like a large-scale renovation, that would trigger a code upgrade. So condition assessments, design reviews, damage assessments, and upgrade assessments. And I suspect we're for this building, we'd be looking at the upgrade assessment level of design. Bowstring trusses. When I started to look at bowstring trusses, I did a little bit of research, and as it turns out, there are known concerns with bowstring trusses, and there have been a number of failures, and then strategies designed to repair quite a number of them. So we have a known thing to deal with, and we've got some known solutions. What are the problems? Underdesigned member sizes, underdesigned for unbalanced snow loading in particular. When many of these buildings were designed in the 60s, unbalanced loading, so snow on one side and not on the other, wasn't considered. That's now part of our building codes since the 70s. And so that makes particularly an arched shaped roof act very differently. So that's a common thing that engineers have found with, particularly with historic bowstring trusses, or any arched members in particular. There's been problems with top core delaminations, bottom core tension failures, eccentric connections, so connections that that caused problems internally to the node. Reverse loading, so also related to the unbalanced snow loading. Some web members designed for compression flip and go into tension, and then they have failures either with the member or the connection, and the inverse for members that were designed for tension going into compression. And then decay. When wood decays, you get new problems. So if it's performed very well for a long period of time and then it decays, then that historic performance can't be relied upon. It's been a common problem with bowstring trusses at the eaves where it leaks and getting into the connections. In the Fernie Arena, just to take a step back, the Fernie Arena, we were hired to design only repairs for the connections and the members in the trusses. There had been previous engineering reports for the rest of the building and a concept and a design completed. And in that case, it was quite expensive, and we were able to come up with a different approach. In the design that was designed and tendered, there was a lot of steel, large-scale connections, and a lot of those connections, could have had problems in themselves. Another common solution in a bowstring truss is to put a high-strength steel rod on the bottom cord to reinforce the connections and maybe pre-stress it a little bit. First time I designed one of these was in 2008 for Banff Hockey Arena. Since then, I've seen that solution applied in a number of different places by different engineers. The solution that we used in Fernie was a bit of a hybrid with steel and timber and a number of screws. We had to reinforce compression members so they could act in tension, and we added steel rods that made the connections relatively easy to accomplish. And areas where we had tension members that went into compression, we had to reinforce them with more timber to help them with their buckling resistance. It's a bit of an isometric of what the design drawings looked like. Large-scale structural screws and some added timber and added rods. We also reinforced for bending resistance in the top chord where it was deficient. This solution, I think, was a reasonable one in that it could be site fit, as that's a common challenge with existing buildings. The bottom chord reinforcement. Best job I could do at an overview with my camera. So what was accomplished? An isolated repair of known deficiencies of the trusses, an upgrade of the trusses to the design load, the current design load. What wasn't accomplished is a seismic upgrade, an upgrade to the full structural system, or a building code upgrade. Changes to a building code doesn't mean that we have to upgrade all buildings. That would be cost prohibitive if we had to chase ourselves around. But if we are doing a large-scale renovation, or if there's known a problem, that triggers an upgrade. The snow load in Revelstoke is significantly higher than that in Fernie. We know that roofs here can collapse, so we don't want to take this lightly. What has been happening is snow removal as a temporary solution, which I think is a reasonable one, but our building code doesn't says that shouldn't be done as a permanent solution. The level of under design that was reported in the Watson Engineering is far worse than what we found in the Fernie arena. A seismic upgrade would be quite challenging in this. It's a site class E, which means there likely are liquefiable soils. So that increases your seismic load, and we've got unreinforced masonry. So there are some reasons to be concerned. There are avenues to assess structural adequacy of existing buildings that we know and have employed. Just because we have structural deficiencies doesn't mean they can't be fixed. Just because we can fix it doesn't mean we should. But their clever design can make for a cost-effective solution. So, any questions about the Fernie arena in particular?
How much did it cost?
I don't know the full budget, but I know that just the isolated repairs of the trusses was just over $500,000. There were some other things that were fixed at the same time and other costs, but probably more like $1 million in all total. Thanks.
Thank you, Robin. And I'm sure there'll be more questions on Fernie. They are our sister city, and way behind in the standings with our Grizzlies. Way behind. Our final, before we open it up to Q&A, is numbers and tax implication. And what does this all mean as we mull through this process? Before I go to that, if you just go back there, Lori, this is every CAO's worst nightmare. You don't want to be on guard and you have a building collapse. As a fellow Albertan, I know this story intimately. I'm not trying to put the fear into anyone here tonight, but it's very similar to our situation where there was reports, had to do with snow load, it was a perfect storm. And luckily in this situation, no one was hurt, but the roof came down, and roofs do come down in arenas across Canada. I do know the town of Sylvan Lake quite well. We've spoken to their officials, And the similarities are quite frightening, actually, of where we are today. And so it's about public safety, which is our primary responsibility at the city. We have to make sure that when people come to the forum, it's a safe place. And I don't need to get into the technical. You've heard from the experts already. So what we want to do tonight is give you a full picture, and we're throwing a ton at you. So the next section is we're going to talk about just rough numbers based on the Class C that Matt has prepared. Renovation, you now know the number, plus or minus. It's an organic number. It's going to change. There's so many variables. Cost escalation, final design, etc. A like-for-like facility. Roughly, to build a brand-new hockey rink, 800 to 1,000 seats, is roughly 60,000 square feet. The range of construction costs on the lower end is $800 a square foot. On the higher end, $1,000 a square foot. 48 million to 60 million, based on 60,000 square feet. Yes, there's some price compression. We would like to see that number less than 800 a square foot. But for us at the city, we use that range right now as of today, 2026. So when we look at building a like-for-like facility just to replace the forum, no curling, just replace the facility with the number of seats we currently have, we're looking at anywhere from $800 to $1,000 a square foot, up to 60,000 square feet. So for tonight, we've just put up 50 million. What does a multi-purpose facility look like? Well, it's just more square feet. So if you double 60,000 and you go to 120,000 square feet and you have a gymnasium and a fitness center and you have a community space and you have a field house or you have a running track and you have meeting rooms and you have a larger foyer, if it's 90,000 square feet, you just apply it per square foot and that gives you your Class C cost estimate. When we go to tender, we'll know what that fixed number is. But for us, trying to budget and what that means, we look at the total square feet, how much a square foot, and we go with that number. And so when you see this, 80 to 100 million, you just do simple math. And so when the survey comes back and the community wants to see, and you'll see on the survey, if you add up all the amenities, not only do you see the cost and what that means in terms of the taxpayer and the total price, but you'll also see how much square foot each of these amenities add to the overall footprint of the facility. So it can be anywhere from 80 to 100, it could be 70, it could be 110. It all depends what we're looking at. And we must not forget the curling rink. And we here tonight talking about the forum. Well, the forum has a sister, and she's right beside her. And the curling rink runs on a separate system, but it is aging. And we can't forget our curlers. Ideally, if we build a new facility, we have to be mindful of curling. No, it doesn't have the numbers that hockey does, but it does have a following, and it's part of our history. The curling club, in fact, is older than minor hockey itself. They've been curling in Revelstoke since the late 1800s. And so adding a new curling facility, again, just adds more square feet, and you just do the simple math. The next slide, I'm going to get into just a general overall on what the implications of debt means to the average taxpayer, average home. So when I say average home, the average assessed value of a home in Revelstoke is $860,000, average. Some are higher, not many are lower, but the average is 860. So these numbers are based on if you own a home and it's valued at 860,000, to assume to renovate and add 10 to 15 years to the Revelstoke Forum. If we were to borrow $25 million to pay for the entire renovation as per the Class C cost estimate provided by Grayback, that's $215 per year, 30 years, to finance $25 million on the average home assessed at $860,000. The next number, if we build a new spectator, what we call a spectator arena, 800 seats. I talked about 60,000 square feet, $800 to $1,000 square foot. What does that mean to the average taxpayer? $345. For the average house, $860,000 for 30 years. When you move down to the commercial side, the bottom part, and remember, commercial owners and commercial property owners pay two taxes. They pay the business tax and their home. So they're hit twice, unless they're leasing, but in lease costs are taxes. What we do with commercial is we assess it per 100,000. So for renovation, it's $141, and for a new facility, it would be $191. Well, and the first thing you say, well, why is commercial paying less than residential? It's the assessed value. It's per 100,000 for commercial. So you simply do a factor of 10. If it's $1 million commercial business, you're paying $14,000 to renovate, and you're paying up to $20,000. $1,400, sorry, thank you. $1,400. Thank you. And just under $2,000 a year for a like-for-like facility. So the commercial part, we just break it down per 100,000. So if your commercial's worth $500,000, you just use the factor. Okay, so it gives you an idea. Council feels and staff feel that this is the limit of our debt, whether we build new or renovate. To borrow $25 million, those are the numbers. To borrow $50 million, those are the numbers. To go and borrow more than that, it just gets too cost prohibitive. So if we build new, we're going to need help, either externally, grants, a partner, sponsorships, or other. And in today's world, local governments can't finance capital projects by debt alone, just because of price and costs. And so the challenge is to find partners and be creative. So in short, and I can answer more questions when we open up to Q&A, we're looking at anywhere from 25 to 50 million of debt. Those are the numbers. They're going to be shared. They're going to be part of the survey. But it's important that everyone understand that these numbers have been vetted by finance. They're based on the average house of 860,000. For commercial, it starts at 100,000 and a multiple thereof. If there's any questions on that, we can certainly answer that during the Q&A. Everyone owns a credit card. Everyone has a cap on their credit card. The city, through debt, is the same way. It's through the Municipal Finance Authority. It's a municipal bank that all municipalities in British Columbia access. We get preferred rates, but our cap on our credit card is relative to how much taxes we collect and what they call debt servicing. And the more people and the more taxes you take in, the higher the cap on the credit card. We could go higher than 50 million for the arena. We have room in our cap on the credit card, but we have other competing projects. When you look at the infrastructure upgrades, water, roads, other second crossing, bridges, we need to keep those monies aside dedicated for those projects that have been identified in our long-term capital plan. We can't take all of the credit card to finance a new facility. So we're just looking at a cap no more than 50 million of debt servicing, whether it's renovation or new. Okay, with that, on to the fun stuff. Question and answer period. So this is how we're going to do it. Anyone who wants to come up to the front, feel free. I believe the microphone will be on, and then I'm going to try best to refer that question to the responsible person to answer, and then we're going to go to our friends on Slido. Everyone gets a chance to speak once. I'll be bringing some questions off Slido, and if you want to speak a second time, please allow everyone else to speak a first time. It is 7:30. We're only halfway through, so we've got ample time for Q&A, and we're hoping to answer every single question tonight. So with that, the floor is yours. Sure. Oh, right there, Peter. Sorry. Right there. Yeah. Maybe your second time, sir.
Yes, good evening to everybody. It's a very important part of Revelstoke, this meeting here today. And everybody should participate, you know, so nobody's off complaining after when we start paying taxes. So that $100 a year taxes or whatever that is not accurate, I don't think. It always keeps going up. But anyhow, I like what Matthew said. The life expectancy of that, the way you're going to do it, is how long you said? 25 years?
I didn't put a timeline on that.
Oh, I thought you sort of mentioned it's only going to be expectancy about 25 more or 30 years or more.
No.
No. Okay, how many years will it be after we do that first class?
There was reference to 10 to
Is the question, what's the expected life
After-
span after renovation?
That's correct.
The city's using 10 to 15 years.
After the renovation?
Correct.
Okay, I don't like that at all. So back to Robin, I recommend we go with yours, and we can make this whole thing work with that to get another 30 years out of it easy. And I just want to make a note here, like the city of Revelstoke, one thing they did is looked after our building well, and we're going to have little check-in and stuff happening in the glue lamps. That's what it's meant to be, and you're right about shrinking and stuff, but I'm ways, with all the engineering talent we got here, if we can clamp it all up and make it work. I don't know exactly how it's going to be. Maybe we should have looked after it a little bit better like we did in some areas there. But I think the columns and that look good. I walked around, and my friend Rocco, he was the superintendent on that job. He made a heck of a job on it. Like, it's built well. Like, every steel insert, everywhere, it's done professional, you know, and that's what makes us proud, and I don't want to give that building up. And if it costs us like 15, 20 million, I'm okay with that. And Vicky, you've been a little bit overrating things there, you know. We want to make the building strong. The washrooms and stuff, if you have to go outside even for a while, you know, it's okay. But yeah, you got a heck of a report, but that's secondary. Hinges and all that stuff, we'll deal with that. We got local talent in this town. Steve Black, another carpenter here, and inspector. We can do that on the job. We have to change the odd hinge and stuff. So it's not like we have to go first cabin on everything right off the bat and still get only 25 years. That's not fair. Let's go with what we did in Fernie, work on it, and we'll get our own carpenters and that and put stainless steel hinges to keep Vicky happy.
Thanks, Peter. George.
Can you guys all hear me? I have some concerns with this panel here. It's 15, 20 years. You know, we build our houses to last 100, no problem at all. As a matter of fact, those glue lamps that you're talking about, I have put them in my house. I took them out of Scotty's. I don't know if people that live there a long time probably know about Scotty's restaurant. I had a 50-foot beam, glue lamp beam, put it in my house, and it's already 50 years old when I put it in there, and I talked to engineers. I said, if I put this in my house, it would be good for another 100? He said, not a problem. So I don't know what they're talking about. I guess the beam's got some cracks. I'm sure they do. But there's a lot easier way to fix those cracks than to spend $50 million. 50 million is beyond the reach of most of it. For myself, I don't care. I'm old enough now that I don't worry about those things anymore. But I worry about my grandkids, and my kids are going to have to pay for this. Now remember that. And you guys got kids, grandkids? They're going to be the ones paying. You know, you guys that are still a little bit too young yet to. I'm over 80, so it doesn't matter to me. But I'm talking on behalf of my grandkids and my kids. They can't afford to pay for it. You know, add another $1,000 onto the taxes, which is not $800 like you say. Mine is over $2,000, so it's not that cheap. And then you add another $800 or $1,000 on it. It's almost too much to bear. So that part of it is not. And then furthermore, I can deal with these costs that won't cost anybody a penny, and you'll have a brand new building. Let somebody else do it. Privatize it, and get rid of the city. The city doesn't know how to do anything. properly anyways. They got to get it out of the city limit, out of the city hands. Privatize it, and you'll get it for nothing. You'll have a better building you have today, and you may pay a little more to get in there, but the user will pay that if he wants to see a hockey game and other things that are going to. So that, I don't know how much investigation has been done in this part of it, but if you want me to look around, I know a few people. Let them build it, and don't have to tax our kids to death. That's all I got to say. Anybody want to
Thanks, George.
challenge me?
My name's Howard Graham. I was a public employee here with the city of Revelstoke from 1983 till 2011, when I retired and the city hired me back to work on snow removal till 2018. I have two concerns with regards to the interior design. Now, I spent several winters working in the arena, and I just want to know, has anyone taken the time to consult the people on the front lines to see what would and would not be user-friendly? Because I remember sweeping and mopping that arena countless times, and minor hockey parents saw me doing it. And the drains in the change rooms are higher than the rest of the floor. So I believe, and I think Vicky talked about the Nanaimo Arena, from what I understand, when you clean up after a user group, you disinfect the walls and hose everything down into drains. That needs to be taken into consideration. Nobody asked the workers on the front lines. I remember mopping water uphill. It was a lot of fun, and it was very time-consuming. Now, another thing, the acoustics in the arena are terrible. Now, hockey, skating, curling, that doesn't encompass an entire year. If you want something that will produce revenue year-round, you want proper acoustics like the South Okanagan Event Center in Penticton, Prospera Place in Kelowna. You'll see big-name talents there, bands, comedians, whatever. They have the acoustics to bring in revenue year-round. Here, we've had bands, we've had Trooper, Powder Blues, and unless you get right up in their face, you can't hear what they're singing or playing. So, a little forethought into the design, and how about talking to people they're going to have to put up with decisions that are made for them, that they have to deal with day in and day out. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to quickly go to a Slido question. First one, how many years do we have left until engineering will say the facility can no longer be used? That question I'm asked all the time. How long do we have, Evan? And I know what the answer is. There is no fixed date that we can all be assured of. I think you've heard the experts tonight speak to that. That's the frustrating part from our end. I cannot answer that. It just takes one freak accident like Sylvan Lake, a perfect storm, and a roof can come down. It all has to do with the snow load. It could be something else. Anytime you're dealing with a facility 60 plus years, there's a lot of factors. We don't know. And now, unless there's a different answer, Stefan, if you want to weigh in.
I'd just like to say one thing. Tyler, who looks after the arena there, last time I was here, he mentioned that he was sitting in the in his office there, you know, and on the far wall through the lobby, and he heard a loud bang inside the arena. No idea what that is. That was after my last inspection. My guess is that if I go up there again, or someone else goes up there again, they'll find something new. And it might be bigger than maybe we're going to like. So that's something.
Yeah, thank you, Stefan. It's, you know, folks, I wish I had an answer to that. We just don't know, but we have to prepare, and we have to know and listen to the experts when the cracks get longer and more frequent, and just understand the basic engineering behind wood trusses. Dennis, welcome.
Thank you. What is the time it would take to do the renovations? Would the building be out of commission during the winter?
Assuming the engineers and the design team come up with a solution that's what I sort of anticipated in the budget I presented. I made the assumption that we would come in kind of May to maybe September and do the roof structuring and then quit. You guys get hockey season rolling and everything else, and then come back for a second season, do the re-roof, do the masonry walls, and Peter's doing the door hardware, so I don't have to do that. But everything else in season 2.
Peter could have that done in a week.
Yeah, including, if all the restructuring didn't happen in season 1, we could finish that up in season 2, as well as the actual rink slab. And the dasher boards would be season 2, so that you would avoid
Any interruption to hockey.
any
And
interruption.
figure skating.
Yeah.
And curling.
And I did think about, okay, well, Christ, you could almost just have trusses completely built, crane them right in, and pull the roof right off. But that's also a risky situation with your weather and stuff like that. If you don't get it all the way done, then you're opening up a real can of worms, and you're definitely going to incur a humongous code upgrade.
Right.
Because you're totally rebuilding a building. I was hoping we could just call it a repair, like Peter wants,
Yeah.
and just
His bears and
try
everything
and
else.
piece through it and avoid some might call unnecessary code upgrades, because you do have an old building that is the way it is.
Well,
right?
thank you, Matt.
Yeah.
Okay, barring any accident that the building has to be closed, unfortunate accident, how long would it take to build a new facility? And how long would Revelstoke be without their junior hockey and their figure skating?
You're going to be a couple of years of construction, but you're also going to probably be up to a year of design time ahead of that. So if you designed it this year and the design was done and the building magically fell down in a year and you could hire somebody and start building, then you'd be 2 years. So you might be 3 to 3.5 in a brand new one.
4 years.
To 4.
Thank you.
Development permit in there.
Thank you very much.
Okay, quickly to another Slido question. When a renovation is done, why, if things are upgraded, does it have only a 10 to 15-year lifespan? I think we covered that. The proposed Class C estimate of 26 million, again, the roof, the trusses, the pad, the brine lines, the front wall, the dasher boards, soft cost contingency escalation, 26 million. Like, we don't know how long the roof's going to last. We don't know how long a facility post-renovation, like any renovated house, is going to last. You want it to last forever. It's still an old building, and there are other issues. We just go with industry standard, what a typical renovated facility does in terms of asset management, its life expectancy. There's a lot of other things that we didn't talk about. We have to be realistic. We know it's not going to be 50 years. And so we go with what other similar municipalities have told us. The challenge with renovation is eventually we're going to have to look at new. We don't know what year that is, and we know that costs will continue going up. But again, to answer that specific question, it all depends on exactly the renovation work we're going to do, talk to the experts. But for the city, for our planning purposes, we have to start building a reserve now, which we're doing. We're only year 3 in. So this year, your tax increase is 5.75%. 2% of that goes into an arena reserve, which is roughly $1.2 million, and that reserve builds every year. So the day that we do have to either build new or come up with some cash, we have a reserve, or we don't have to rely on the taxpayer. I wish we had that reserve set at 20 years ago. We didn't. There were other priorities at that time. And so we're frantically trying to get that reserve up to 20, 30 million. So when that day comes, we have the money where we don't have to tax or rely on grants. To George's earlier question, private partnership, yes, we're looking at it. We have no choice. It's not always the preferred option, Having a facility publicly owned and privately operated is an option. It's a hybrid. It's not sold to the private sector. The asset is in the hands of the taxpayer. It's still a public facility, but it can be operated by the private sector. The private sector can build it, and then we would enter into a lease, and we would pay a lease payment to the builder so they can get their capital back, and that's negotiated, but that's all subject to a referendum. No different than when you're issuing debt, you got to go to public consent. In British Columbia, there's public consent legislation. Anything financed more than 5 years needs the approval of the people. So if we borrow 25 million, it has to go to referendum. If we enter into a lease with the private partner, it has to go to referendum. Because at the end of the day, the taxpayers are either paying lease payments or issuing debt. If the private sector builds it with their own capital, then we have no control and we have to pay those rates. That is an option. Can people afford it? Right now, we have very competitive rates to rent ice. I think most of you know the low per hour and a half ice fees we offer. I know Ryan Parent and the Revelstoke Grizzlies would disagree with that, but there is a price that is competitive. But new construction, I know it won't be $150 an hour. But we are looking at it. We're not blind to that because we have no choice but to find a partner. Next question.
Hello, my name is Renee, and I just have a couple comments and or questions. So there is a couple things mentioned about the snow load in Revelstoke. I like to call myself a pioneer, born and raised here. So I know way back when we had huge snowfalls, I could say, yes, I understand the snow load, but it has, over the last few years, not been the typical Revelstoke snow load. So my question to you is, what actually is the snow load?
I think that's probably, is that Vicky? Are you comfortable with that? Or, I mean, first of all, yeah, climate change is real. I mean, this has been an unprecedented winter. I have to budget for that sort of perfect storm, that event like we had in 2022 when it just comes down heavy. We all know that in Revelstoke. But yeah, it's changed. It's 2026. It's not 1996. We are cognizant of that, but we have to design and be prepared for that one event in 1,000, that perfect storm. That's really what led to the collapse in Sylvan Lake. It was just the perfect storm. So that's what but in terms of snow load on that, Stefan?
Yeah, I can speak that. So when it was built, the snow load was 70 pounds per square foot, and that's increased over the years. And currently, from the 2024 building code, it's at 123 pounds per square foot for Revelstoke.
That's based on your
No, that's based off of the National Building Code. Those are
Right.
the rules you must follow.
right.
Yes, not based on what's actually happening.
No,
Those are the rules you have to build to.
I understand. And according to Vicky, we are not in any, what's the word I'm looking for? We're not in a good spot, correct? With the arena, with the snow load, with the bathrooms, with the rooms downstairs, like, not being disrespectful. Everything you said was a negative. And that's how I took it. I don't know if anyone else did. But
My job is to point out the concerns. They're not huge concerns, but however, the snow load, I would think, is a high priority one.
okay.
Door hardware, very low, very low. Washrooms, especially having accessible washrooms, because the new code prescribes that anything that is public sector needs to upgrade their washrooms to have a public washroom.
Yes.
Not necessarily the stalls, but a room per se.
Yeah.
And yes, no, having experience with other projects that have come across the escalation in the snow load criteria, it has come to a larger cost than they expected. And so I just want to forewarn you that this is coming down the way. And like we're saying, we may not get a new arena or these renovations within the next decade, right? And so those snow loads are going to change. And I understand, yes, I'm experiencing the same thing in Vernon, like, we've had summer all winter, basically. But like flood events, they happen every 5 years, right? And we expect that the climate zones are going to change again. So the anticipation is there. We just don't know when to expect it, right?
Right, and in regards to, like I said, the snow load, in 1972, it was really, really high. In 2026, our winter this year has not been that bad. So it's just, trying to figure out exactly.
Yeah, and engineers are prescribed to assess the worst-case scenario to protect the public, right? And so
Yeah.
that's what we're trying to achieve,
Yep,
right? So,
The snow loads are based on can you hear that?
yeah,
The snow loads are based on a statistical analysis based on snow stations, and it's 1 in a 50-year return period. So they do average it out. It is a scientifically determined. It's not based on our experiences in snow load going up or down necessarily. In 2005, the snow loads increased in the building code in most places because we went from a 1 in 30-year return period to 1 in 50-year return period for design snow. But it is statistically determined by NRCan.
and I don't mean to be rude, but I don't understand what 1 in 50 and 1 in 30 is, and I don't know if anyone else does.
Sure. I can try.
Okay,
Yeah, in any given year, there's a 1 in 50% chance of that snow load being experienced.
okay,
So
okay,
it's a 1 in 50 year chance this year, and next year is a 1 in 50 chance.
okay. The other question I have is, there was I'm not sure who said it, is about roof collapses. And again, I'll ask some of the other older people than I don't recall, not saying it hasn't happened, but I don't recall any roof collapses in Revelstoke. Has there? Okay, and as I said, I could be wrong. So, and my last one is, you are doing the survey on the 2nd of March. Is that all online? Perfect, thank you. That was my question, because there's a lot of people that aren't online, that are older, that are seniors,
Yes,
or just don't have a
right.
computer. So you're only going to get a select kind of geographic of that. And also, too, is for the online, and this, I don't mean to offend anybody, but is it specifically to homeowners, or is it to all of Revelstoke? Because we are a seasonal community, and if you do all of Revelstoke, and that's fine, but if they're not a homeowner here, and they're like, oh yeah, hell yeah, let's do it, let's build a brand new thing, it doesn't affect them if they're just here seasonal.
Yep.
It affects the people that are homeowners that live here, that have supported Revelstoke, so that's just a
Yeah.
little
No,
bit of
thank you.
information.
There is a category in the survey that asks, I don't have it in front of me, but it basically asks, are you a homeowner, are you a tourist, are you a renter?
Okay.
So it's very specific, but yes, that's the point of the whole survey, is to hear from the community, to make sure that, to hear from tourists saying, yeah, build it, I would love it, but they're not paying for it. That's not meaningful for council or staff.
Right.
We need to hear from the ratepayers, so thank you for that. For
Yeah.
those that didn't hear the question, on the survey, if you don't have access to online, or you don't have the QR code, just contact the rec center. There will be prescribed dates and times to assist anyone who wants to fill out the survey the old conventional way. We just want to make sure the survey results are done, so just reach out to us.
Great, thank you
Okay.
very much for your time.
Thank you. Next, welcome.
Hi, my name is Betsy. And I'm glad that you brought up safety. I believe your quote is, it's about safety. You also mentioned the credit card has cap on it. So I am into safety, and the bridge. A 2-lane bridge is unsafe for the amount of building that is going on the south side of that bridge. Slave Lake, Fort McMurray, given the winter we're having and possibly the wildfire season that we're going to have ahead of us, unsafe. So that being said, this is a lot of money. You said you're leaving room on the credit card for, I think you mentioned the bridge, but that's still going to take our taxes and do this, okay? They're going to just keep going up and up and up for those of us that live here year-round. I love hockey as much as the next person. I am in my red. I love the Grizzlies. I love Canada, and I love hockey. However, I really am a proponent of safety first. And the bridge is unsafe, and that bridge, in my guess, is going to be the same amount of money as this hockey rink. Am I off base?
Actually, we might have to hire you. You're pretty much bang on.
Yeah.
What's the expected price tag, Steve, of a second crossing, ballpark?
About 30.
Yep. And this brings up my next important piece, the hospital. We have wonderful doctors in this community and a woefully inadequate hospital. I'm a retired equine surgeon, so my expertise are horses, but this hospital is inadequate. And this could be a rumor, and I've misunderstood it, but we had the opportunity to get a CT in here, but we don't have a place to put it. Again, for all the people in this room who are locals, that hospital comes ahead of a $25 to $50 to $100 million hockey rink. I agree with the gentleman that came up here. There needs to be some heavy-duty fundraising, privatization, or something. It should not be on our backs as taxpayers. If I'm going to pay tax, I want to see a bridge that gets everybody out of here safely in case the wildfire happens, and I want to see a hospital that can take care of my community.
Thank you. So core infrastructure, there are grants available both federally and provincially to address bridges and crossings, what we call core infrastructure, roads, water, sewer, and bridges. Unfortunately, there's not the same amount of money for rec centers. So it is our hope, if a second crossing is 30 million and we can get people across the Illa Silhouette safely in the event that either A, the existing bridge goes down, or provide a second crossing, it is the hope that we fund that with grants. Those grants are more available than rec centers, and that's our challenge. Now, the federal government will be moving to provide more funding for rec centers because every small community in Canada is facing the same crisis. Most of these facilities were built in the 60s, 70s. When Canada celebrated its 100th birthday in 1967, these arenas and community halls went up, and now they're basically 60 plus years old. And so we're hoping to see more funding. To the $100 million, again, whatever the number is on new construction, it is the recommendation that we cap debt, which is the amount the taxpayer will fund, between 40 and 50 million, and the numbers I shared with you tonight. At the end of the day, it's up to council. And at the end of the day, it's up to the people through the referendum to vote on what is the acceptable number for debt. It can't be any higher than either 40, 50 million. The rest has to come from elsewhere, to George's point. You have to find a partner. We will not be funding $100 million on the back of the taxpayer. It's impossible. It's impossible. We're trying to find a reasonable amount that's palatable, but it's in combination with government grants and partners if we build new. If we renovate, you've seen the number, roughly $215 to renovate and issue roughly $25 million in debt. If we get grants and it's only $15 million in debt or 20 million, then it's just less per household, per taxpayer. Thank you. Welcome.
Hey there. First of all, thank you for putting this together. Appreciate your time and effort to present this for us. I was just had a few questions around the snow load for the roof, which seems to be the major concern. My first question is, and there was a little bit of some information showing past events in Sylvan. what is the current Revelstoke snow mitigation process to remove snow from heavy once, if we're worried about the worst case once in a while type scenario, what's our current scenario to mitigate that? My second question would be, did Sylvan have any sort of similar type mitigation process in place? And did that happen when that event happened? What would be your guys' recommendation on the future potential mitigation process that would alleviate concerns for an event like that?
Great question. Lori, do you want to come up? We call Lori the Snow Queen. She watches the snow load, she watches the skies, and she's been doing this for years with her crew. So I think she's best to answer that question.
So we have a snow management report that was prepared by Watson Engineering years ago, and the recommendation is that at 50 pounds a square foot that we initiate snow removal procedures on the arena roof. We have a detailed design drawing that outlines which sections of the roof we monitor for snow, as well as which sections we remove and how we go about doing that. We retain a local contractor who's well-versed in the snow removal process and has been doing it for us for a number of years. Excuse me. We typically start removing snow at 35 pounds per square foot, only because when we initially started it, if we wait till we get to 40, we find the process takes twice as long to remove the snow, and it takes the contractor about 5 days to put together a crew to get onto the roof. And at that time, we could find that we go over the 50 pounds per square foot. So the last few years, we've been really conservative in our approach, and 35 pounds per square foot. We have documentation where we measure each section and document it, so we have all the paperwork on it, and that's about it.
Thanks, Lori. Back to Slido quickly. Is it my understanding that we would have increased taxes for 30 years on a reno that would only last 10 to 15 years? Okay, go ahead. Thank you.
Lake scenario, did that have, how was that set up? Did they have the snow mitigation? How do we see our current mitigation process going forward? You've probably seen it been used less than previous years, maybe in the last few years. That type of analysis.
I mean, the short answer with Sylvan Lake is, do I know specifically what they do in terms of their snow load protocols? No. It's not, their facility is similar to ours. I'm sure they have their own protocols. We're very aggressive on ours, as Lori explained. What's concerning with Sylvan Lake is there were reports prior to the collapse saying that the trusses are weakening, that the cracks are becoming more frequent, they're becoming longer, and it took a perfect event, what we call a perfect storm, where they had a lot of snow, they had wind, and luckily no one was inside. It's not the only rec center or arena that has collapsed roofs. I mean, Canada's littered with these stories. But in Revelstoke, we're very aggressive and we watch it very closely. So to get an answer on exactly what Sylvan Lake does, that's a phone call, and maybe I can share that once I receive that information.
Yes, thanks. So I guess my question is for maybe Lori is, wouldn't we be more, being in a mountain town, heavy snow loads, we're aware of these conditions coming, would we be very proactive on that versus reactive, potentially, where Sylvan might have been more caught off guard with something like that? That's maybe my question is, when we're having a heavy snow load, would we be anticipating that and what would be our reaction time to mitigate that, I guess, to avoid a catastrophic failure?
Well, in short, and we've talked about this at the staff level, if there was a tremendous amount of snow, no one's going in the building. We would basically shut the doors, get the snow off as soon as possible. We're not going to allow normal operations during a perfect storm. It was mentioned earlier, 4 inches, so just think of 4 inches. I think if it got to 2 or 3 inches, Lori would be saying, I'm not opening the doors. If it collapses, it's just a pile of rubble. And so we are not going to put the public at risk when it even gets 50% close to its maximum load, whether it's 2 inches, 3 inches, or so many pounds per square feet. We're very cognizant of that number. And so the short answer is, if there was a big dump, that arena shut down. And we will deal with the snow, and then we'll get it tested again, and we would bring in the experts to see if there's been additional stress. That's just the reality when you're dealing with a facility of this age.
I should also mention that we test the snow load after each weather event, whether it's a windstorm, heavy rain, heavy snowfall. So we could measure the snow 3 or 4 times a week, depending what the climate is. And our snow removal contractor is on retainer. So he is aware that he's to be in the community, and we keep in touch with him throughout the week. So we do report the snow load to him, which oftentimes, when it hits 20 pounds per square foot, we're having a conversation. I'm giving him the heads up. And so he's waiting for my call. So there have been events where I can't recall exactly if it was 4 or 5 years ago, where we had that heavy snowfall event over the New Year's long weekend. I don't know if you guys remember it. It was, we took the snow load before the weekend and it was fine. And then all of a sudden we had that big heavy snowfall. Well, that weekend, that put us at 35. And we had just spoke and he was like, what? You told me it was 15 and now you're at 35? But that's how fast it can happen. And it hasn't happened since then. The last few years, we've been well into the 20s, high, like the 15 to 20 range, and it's been fine. So we haven't shoveled in a couple of years, but the standard is once a year we're probably shoveling.
No problem. Thank you. Welcome.
There's a number of questions on the thing about kind of the costs being spread out over X number of years versus the lifespan of the thing, of the asset. And what I would just suggest in response to those, so that you kind of present better information in the future, is that when you're talking about the annual tax increase per average household, which is a very reasonable way to explain it to people, you have that for each project based on the number of years of the project. So if it's 25 million for 15 years for one, that's the calculation. If it's 50 million for 40 years for another, that's the calculation. Because right now there's a lot of ambiguity about what the numbers are actually saying.
Yeah, and you're talking about the amortization period. When the city issues debt, we have anywhere from 5 years to 40 years, and it depends on the amount and spreading the payments over time.
But I'm not talking about the city's debt. I'm talking about the useful life of the asset that you're creating with your project.
Yeah,
right. So don't think of it as debt that we're going to be wanting to pay off an arena that we've torn down 30 years from now still. What we want to think about is, if we're getting 15 years, that's how much it costs, and then we assume after 15 years we have another expense we're going to have to cover, right?
Yep, I got it. Thank you. Quickly, I'm just going to finish that Slido question. Does it mean an increase in taxes for the next 30 years if we do a reno? Yes. If we borrow $25 million, taxes are going up $215 per $860,000 household. If we get a grant of $5 million and we only issue $20 million of debt, it's lower than that. If we find a partner and it reduces that debt even further, then that annual payment will be less than that. We use as a standard 30 years because that is your typical lifetime to finance debt, whether it's a bridge or a civic facility. It could be shorter. It all depends on the amount and whether you find partners or grants. But for this purpose, if we were to renovate the Forum and issue $25 million of debt, that's the number. Another question is, as code continues to change, are we expected to always be updating the arena to always be compliant with evolving codes? How many of the compliance issues are mandatory versus nice to have? I think we talked about that a little bit, Vicki.
You know, certainly the code changes about every 4 to 5 years, depending on how quickly they publish the code. And we follow the National Building Code, so we're about 2 years behind that with the BC Building Code. And so, for instance, this last issuance, the prescribed components were seismic upgrades, accessibility, availability for a building, and then what was the third one? There was a third one. In any case, those specific components of a building are necessary. However, if you are doing a renovation for a building and the percentage of the overall cost is 70% of what the overall building would be, then you are prescribed to upgrade any of the components that are non-compliant.
Thank you, Vicki. Just a quick question. I think we can get a quick answer. Average snowfall on the arena, what does it cost, Lori, to remove the snow ballpark on contracted service on a weather event? 35,000? Could be a little higher, could be a little lower, but average snowfall? 35,000. Next question. Welcome.
Hi. I just have a question for Vicki. You mentioned that you have an occupancy for 1,300 at our arena right now? I'm sure that's what you said, because what's posted there is 1,000,
Yeah.
not 1,300.
True.
So
True.
where
And
do you get 1,300 from?
So the building code has a divider into the area of a specific room. So for instance, an office space, say it's 10 by 10, the divider into that is 9.8, but this is all in metric, mind you. And so 2 people would be allowed in that space for it. But if the lobby space is larger than that, the divider into that one, I think, is 0.85. And so it's a lot more people, right? And so that's where the numbers from my calculations come from. The posted one, though, is how many seats and how many standing positions you can
It says
accommodate.
maximum occupancy.
Exactly.
Is 1,000 in that
Yes.
arena.
And that's a negotiation with your fire department.
It's never 1,000 in that arena.
No, and good on you if it is, because then I know that all the seats and standing positions have been paid for, right? And
Yeah, to me, that's a fire hazard
It is.
with what's going on right now.
Yeah.
Just real quick, I can speak to as far as the posted occupant load. That is done through a few different calculations, similar to what Vicki was getting into as well. It is calculated out based on the area, the number of your egress areas, as well as your washroom count. The design occupant load is not necessarily what's called, there's 2 different occupant loads that can be assigned to a building. You have a design occupant load, which is based on the BC Building Code, and then you have a safe occupant load, which is determined by the fire code. So with the forum, that one, I was aware, I was involved in the occupant load calculation of that one. And again, it's taken as an overall calculation of numerous different pieces. It is broken up based on the use of specific areas within that facility. It's not just assigned to get a bulk amount of for the entire space. It is actually divided up a little bit more specifically, but the overall occupant load, the design occupant load of the building would be at about
I think
1,000.
some of you need to go to a Grizzly game and tell me that that's safe, what's going on in there right now. There's no way those people are getting out of there. There's no way.
Yep.
I've been, and there's no way on that curling side that those people are getting out of there if there's a fire. No way. It's a concern.
Thank you. I know that the city and the Grizzlies work very careful on occupancy load. There is a counter that the volunteers representing the Grizzlies participate in, and those numbers are shared with the city. I know the fire chief has been paying attention. It is something we're mindful of. We know what the number is, and we expect and have received cooperation from our junior A hockey team on counting. I've personally been to games where they've turned away people because they've just sold out. They know what the number is, and we watch that carefully. And yes, the New Year's Eve game, that's, the intimacy in the small space in the Revelstoke Forum, it is a concern. It's just like, where does everyone go in the event of a fire? Does the roof replacement cost include the curling rink? What is the remaining life of the curling rink roof? I believe the cost to renovate the Forum includes just the arena part, correct? In terms of the curling rink, I don't believe we have an estimate on the roof, do we not? No. Matt?
When we looked at the curling rink, the structure was, on all the reports, and Stefan could probably confirm, I think all the concerns were just in the Forum roof trusses. I thought the curling rink was in pretty good shape. So that wasn't in the budget or required to be done, as far as I could see.
One of the survey questions is, do we just keep the curling rink? If we were to decommission the arena, do we keep the curling rink as is? Do we build new? That's a survey question. I know based on the reports I've read, to echo Matt's comments, yeah, the roof in the arena is in rougher shape than the roof at the curling rink. Do we have a cost estimate on the curling rink roof? No, but we have a pretty general idea of the per square foot cost of renovation, as we talked about earlier. Arenas like Cochrane have received sponsorship from companies such as Garmin. Has the city explored leveraging Revelstoke's reputation as a recreational destination to seek sponsorship from similar sports-focused organizations? Great question. Yes, we are looking at all kinds of different options. Typically, sponsorships pay for operating. So if you enter into a 10-year sponsorship agreement with the private sector, whether it's the name or dedicated space in the arena, typically those funds go to reduce the operating costs, because it's one thing to build a facility, it's another to staff it and run it. So traditionally, municipalities use sponsorship funds to fund operating. Can we find a sponsor to fund capital? Yes, but when you're talking about 50, 60,000 square feet and you're talking 48 to 60 million, if we were to find a sponsor at $1 million a year, it hardly makes a dent into the capital, but $1 million a year makes a huge dent in the operating. It is very common for municipalities to find sponsors. In fact, there's companies that work with local governments where you pay them a fixed fee and they bring as many sponsors to the table to help alleviate both capital and operating, but typically sponsorships go to operating. Further to Vicky's comment, has the city had legal advice on our legal exposure due to building problems? Great question. We have coverage through our insurance provider. MIABC is the provincial municipal insurance program, and they cover all our aging assets, and they make sure that risk is properly managed, whether it's a bridge, whether it's an arena or swimming pool. They ask for updated reports on the condition of those facilities. If we fail to provide that information, we run the risk of non-coverage, especially due to negligence. And so without getting into the details of some past court cases, if something were to happen and the municipality is to go to court, if there was an injury or, God forbid, a death, and someone sued the municipality, we would have to demonstrate to the courts that we are aware of the issue and that we provided proper maintenance and scheduled maintenance. And so if we're negligent on that, we would be liable. We do have errors and omissions coverage. So if there's an error or an omission on either design or other, there's criteria in that, whether you're covered or not. So in short, we, the city, have to provide updates on all our aging facilities and make sure we're properly insured. Our premiums are roughly about $130,000 a year. That covers all kinds of general liability and exposure insurance, errors and admissions, etc. Comprehensive. I could go on and on. They watch municipalities very closely because there is close to 200 municipalities in British Columbia and infrastructure is aging. You can imagine the risk with an aging water treatment plant. the risk with the bridge, and we have to provide updates to our insurance providers. Would an arena built 10 years ago meet the current building code? That's a good question. That's a big hard no.
No. An arena built 3 days ago still probably wouldn't meet building code. They change constantly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Matt. What's the lifespan of a building of a new arena? Matt, roughly.
Easily 50 years, but we'd have to do it as good as Peter did, so it's got to be like 60, right? Or 70, but 50, no problem, I think. Yeah.
Sure. Go ahead, Peter.
I'm going to make a few comments. First of all, I sure appreciate having this group like that so we could face the questions directly. And I want to have a talk with Vicky. See if she's got an open checkbook. You must be married to a rich husband, probably, right?
Be nice, Peter.
Oh. But anyhow,
Yes.
Talking about the 100 signatures or 1,000 signatures, if you get a form where I can get 1,000 signatures, I'd like to get the award started with him designing it with the builder and Watson, and start designing it. Because there's no way we're going to go over it into 50, 60 million. So let's keep it, let's shoot for 15 million for now, and we'll manage somehow with the contracting. And like Kenyon is a local company from way back. They might give us a discount too, so we'll take advantage of all the little things. And I'm sure we got enough talent here. How are we going to save money? Like Mr. Black alone, we could save some engineering costs there, so all these things will help. And Mr. Parliament, you'll dig into, like put an apron on at night, and this is what it's all about, building a community. Like that's what we did with this arena we have now. We poured that by hand with wheelbarrows. When we had 50, 60 guys doing it, and I don't know, my brother and his partner and I organized it, and we done it. Like, you know what I mean? And that's what it is. And guess what our pay was? Well, we didn't have to pay tax on anything, so no pay. And also, this in my notes there, I was just do a little bit of bragging. On one wall in the arena, I still got a guarantee on it, over 55 years ago. It got a little bit of mildew in the bottom there. So I'm going to rebuild that for free. And thanks for everybody coming here. I sure appreciate that.
Thanks, Peter. Hi.
Hi. I guess the first thing I want to say is having debt on a structure that may fail for an extra 10, 15 years is probably not in the best interest of the community. The other thing is, has there been any numbers released for a non-spectator sized arena? So I think of some of the smaller arenas. Okay.
Well, I can answer it. No, we're an open forum tonight.
Yeah.
We did look at downgrade, like a smaller facility that had 500 seats, or what we call a player-only facility, which is just benches. But we lose our junior A hockey team. We cannot host tournaments. For a community that's going this way in terms of growth and looking at our future, we thought at least as a base, start with a like-for-like facility as a base, 800 to 1,000 seats. To go backwards, to have a players-only facility, yes, it would be cheaper, less square feet, et cetera, less seats, but we would lose a lot in return, and that's not something we're prepared to look at. Good question.
Yeah, I guess just, at the end of the day, if it is too expensive for the community, I would rather still have a hockey rink than not have a hockey rink.
Right. Thank you. Can the city approve a parking variance for the 1 parking space per 2 occupants requirement, like it has for Mackenzie Village development? This seems like an unnecessarily large parking area. Okay, Vicky. Give it your best shot.
That request would have to come by during a development permit, which the arena would have to go through. And we would have probably a similar open forum like this to give any concerns involved. I have seen it, definitely the arenas have been built downtown Vancouver, downtown Toronto, all these sorts of things where parking is a concern. However, they have a better public transportation network than you guys do. And so that would be some of the conversations that would be brought up, but it will become through the development permit process.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thanks. So if we estimate the lifespan of a renovation to 15, 20 years, what would be the cost, or what would be the renovation or implication to renovate it again? Like, what would that look like versus just building from new? Like, what would be the costs 15, 20 years from now versus building a new arena, which would cost, I guess, based on your estimates, is about half or double what we're paying for reno? So just kind of like food for thought.
No, for sure. Like I said, right now, the industry is charging between $800, $1,000 a square foot to renovate, to build new. What will it be like by 2035, 2040? We know it'll be more. When we do cost escalation, you saw the cost escalation just for the next 4 or 5 years, because that's roughly what it would take, 3 to 4 years with design, construction, et cetera. It's a scary number. I mean, the world has, since COVID, I think we'll all agree, nothing makes sense anymore with pricing in general. That's a concern of local governments. And, again, when the prices were reasonable, we could fix infrastructure by just issuing debt that came in small pieces and people would go, okay, I can afford that. Those days are gone. Now to replace infrastructure requires millions and millions. If you don't have reserves, you either have to rely on grants, and that's why a lot of things are stalled, because we're waiting for a grant and there's high competition for grants, or partnerships. So to answer your question, what's the cost to renovate in 2035? It'll be a lot more than $800 a square foot. And in essence, you're sort of kicking the can down the road by continuing to renovate, because eventually you're going to have to build new. You just can't renovate old, aging infrastructure forever. No different than a bridge. And things just don't last. They have a life expectancy. And that's all part of asset management. And so it's a challenge for us. I know if we had built this arena, I mean, the South Okanagan Event Center in Penticton was built in 2008, 2007. It came in at around $50 million. I think it ended up just under $80 million. And people were outraged. That facility today is probably closer to $300 million. And it's a beautiful facility. It's got a WHL team. It was cheap in 2006. I wish we could build something like that for that price. But that's how much the world's changed. And so, back to George's question, we are looking at partnerships. We need help from the private sector somehow. We can't do this on the backs of the taxpayer, renovation or new construction.
And I guess a quick follow-up, is there anything else with this current arena that would need to be replaced, like the cooling system, like large cost repairs, renovations in the next 15, 20 years?
Does anyone want to take a shot at that? Welcome, Terry.
Sure, I haven't talked much. So that is actually all covered in this. So this budget does have, in the second year, actually like removing the ice surface, replacing it, new dasher boards, new cooling tower, fixing the cooling tower, all that was part of this. So this is kind of like the monster upgrade. The upgrade in 15 years is theoretically going to be quite a bit less. How much? We don't know. It depends on what happens with the structure, the upgrade, the snow. And that's the big unknown.
Thank you. How much did the repairs to the Fernier Arena increase its lifespan? I believe arena. Do we have a number, Robin, like how many years after the trusses were replaced of the lifespan? I mean, I guess that's a question to the city of Fernie. I can certainly ask and get back, but does something come to mind?
I don't recall, but I know it's not designed for 75 years, or nobody's anticipating that because the rest of the building's not been upgraded.
Thank you. Dennis?
Vicky? Yeah. Those railings in the rink, they're obsolete. They should be.
From my measurements, they're high. Right. They're higher than what they should be. Some of the locations, I think more so on the far end of the arena, I guess, towards Victoria Street, there are areas where they're touching the wall and you can't grasp them.
That's right.
Right? And so those sorts of elements is what I was looking for as deficiencies.
Well, just for your information and everybody else, those railings came from where that apartment building is over here.
Oh, so they're
The original
purposed,
Revelstoke's arena.
right?
And Revelstoke had the first artificial ice in the Okanagan.
Oh, there you go.
That's true.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of history in that ring.
Yes, I understand.
And it's wonderful to have. I realize the safety part of it. I do see the kids swinging on it like a bunch of monkeys, and we don't want them hurt. So, yes, they could be replaced. But to replace the arena at $50, $80 million, and you're going to get 50 years out of it, compared to 26 million for 15 years, what do you got? It's a decision that you guys have done your homework very well. Thank you very much for coming. But this kind of a decision has got to be made by us that live here.
Correct.
And having you people and your expertise come here and explain this to us is something that we're probably, overwhelmed with, but it's reality. It's a beautiful rink. Been here since the early 60s, and it's aging. We know the dressing rooms have to be upgraded. We know the washrooms have to be upgraded. But what you guys have done tonight, have done your homework, and for the quick fix, upgrade. For the long term, build new. That's all I could say. Thank you very much for all your time.
Thank you, Dennis. One of the questions on the board, there's two related to taxes and cost. Will this debt trigger a referendum? So the provincial legislation is very simple. Anytime a municipality takes on a capital expenditure exceeding 60 months, 5 years, requires public consent. And it's 50% plus one. So if we finance anything less than 60 months, less than 5 years, we can finance it internally through reserves or short-term loan without public consent, if council chooses. But a large ticket item, if we don't have enough reserves and it's financed more than 5 years, public consent, referendum. The second question was, has there been any discourse into using other generated funds to offset taxes? Grizzlies games, ticket sales, etc. There are models out there. The new facilities and the renovated facilities include now food and beverage. Food and beverage drives revenues. Sponsorships, which we talked about earlier. In some specific communities, larger centers, cities, there's special levies that are charged on tickets that go back to paying the capital. We don't have that in Revelstoke. Those are afforded to the larger centers where there's a complex private partnership. If you think of the Edmonton Oilers and Rogers Place, that whole deal involves special levies. The big advantage the United States has over Canada when it comes to these facilities is in the United States, local governments have access to sales tax. We do not. So the PST and the GST collected, goes to either Ottawa or Victoria. We do not have access to those funds, and so when facilities are built in the States, some of the sales tax goes back to fund facilities. They also have special levies we don't have in Canada. So primarily, to build a facility in Canada, it's debt, the taxpayer, it's grants, and what we call other. It's a partner, whether it's private, non-for-profit, or another user. It could be two governments sharing a facility. It could be a regional facility where we ask our partner, the Columbia Shoe Shop Regional District, to come to the table. They represent Area B, but they would have to approve that. So let's say we decided to renovate or build new, we would be going to our regional government and asking for support. So there are other ways to come up with funds. You can generate revenues in these facilities by adding new amenities where it's more cost recovery, and those revenues go to either pay down the operating costs or to pay down the debt, the capital costs. If the roof renovation includes structural upgrades to the foundation and adding roof trusses, why is the life expectancy only increased by 10 to 15 years? Seems quite low considering the type and scope of the upgrade. Too technical for me. Anyone?
It has to do with the unknowns, and that's really it. If we're upgrading the glulam beams, we're still counting on the glulam beams structurally. So unless we talk about it even crazier right now where we completely remove them and build a whole new structure, there are going to be unknowns.
Kenny?
Yeah, I think that okay, there we go. So ultimately, let's try this further. Okay, so ultimately it is about the kind of what's been said here, but yeah, we do have to look at if we did the structural upgrades on the roof and the foundation. Again, that is one aspect of the building. It's not necessarily the building as a whole. As we've said, like there are some uncertainties. Once some designs, if this was to be the option that ends up going forward as a repair option, once the designs are actually finalized on, as we've said, whether it's a repair of the existing trusses or full replacement of the trusses, that would determine the lifespan of the building. So to err on the side of caution, again, with the unknowns as we're currently sitting right now, we want to be erring towards the 10 to 15 mark. Again, that could actually be extended further depending on the style of design that does ultimately get finalized, if that is the option that the community does choose.
Thank you. Before I have you speak, sir, if you mention the Olympic gold game, I'm going to have you sit down. So be careful.
I'm insulted you didn't congratulate the American
Congratulations,
okay,
Andy.
Thanks, okay. We'll talk about it later. I'd like to say a quick thank you to Mr. Parliament and the whole city staff and all you fine people for coming up here, and it's great to have an open forum about this. Vicky, I have a question for you, and I don't think everything you're saying is negative. I appreciate you're just doing your job and pointing out stuff that we need to know about. So your comments shocked me quite a bit because I had no idea there was a bunch of little small stuff there at the arena. How long can the forum operate with the current code violations? Things like seats, the stairs, bathrooms, parking, sidewalks, and one thing like you mentioned, like the legroom is not up to code right now. So if we did a renovation on the forum, would we have to decrease the amount of seating there to make up for that legroom code where you might say we're at 1,300 an hour, we know it's about 1,000. Would you say, well, once we do a renovation and allow more legroom, we're going to go back to 800 seats?
It depends on a certain components of things. And to answer your questions about the high priority things versus not, like the door hardware, you know, it's not a big thing. Maintenance is a big component of that. The seats location is a tripping hazard, basically, for fire egress. And so we want to make sure that the amount of seats per length of seating doesn't go over 7 seats per before you hit an aisle. Sorry, I'm a hand talker. And so what I'll call is the aisle for that particular row of seats can be adjusted depending on where the seat is positioned on the riser, right? And so those sorts of things can be modified. We just have to look at what the original design was. But yes, certainly.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, I guess one question I would have for the community is what's more important, because with the city growth, we look at it now. I go to every Grizzly game. I have for a long time. It's gotten crazy the last few years. I feel bad for people who just want to show up and buy a ticket. It's maxed out now. So the way that I see the city growing, in 5 or 10 years, as you see all the building going on, and I'm not going to blame the city for that, sir. They're doing their job, and I have more complaints. This guy wears earplugs when I come have a beer with him from all my complaints about the resort and the city. Okay, he's great at fending me off. But anyway, what does the community want? Where down the road, the way things are going right now, there's no way that arena is going to be able to handle, in 5-10 years, the increase in tourism and people moving here for Grizzly games. So that's one question I would have for the community. And I totally respect my idol. Where's Peter Bernacki?
He's gone.
He's gone, okay. He left, right? Okay. I love Peter, he's my favorite Grizzly fan. But, I guess one question I would have for the community is, what do you want? Do you just want to renovate the arena, keep it for 10, 15, 20 years maybe, and then start over and say now what was going to be 80 to 100 million is now 150 million? And one huge question that I would have for people that do love going to the Grizzly games and attending events there is, and Evan knows this because I've talked a lot about corporate sponsorships and partnerships, would the community be opposed to an arena, a brand new arena that was paid for a large amount by corporate advertising? I don't know if locals would say, well, yeah, we'd love to have a new arena, but when I'm pulling my little roll of toilet paper off, I'm going to be looking at it's sponsored by Tim Hortons. And then I go to wash my hands and it's sponsored by Canadian Tire. I don't know if people would say, that's just ridiculous. I don't want that. Or if people would say, look, I don't care how many ads I look at. If it builds us a new arena and it doesn't come out of our tax dollars, then go for it. So that's one thing I don't know if you put in the survey, or I'm curious what some of the respected elderly people in this community would say to that.
Yeah, just quickly, there is a question specific to, would you be in favor of the city exploring the partnership? And there's different models out there. I talked about a few of them tonight, but on the survey, it's very specific to that question. Would you support a partnership? And that includes sponsorship, that includes an equity position, that includes a possible lease. There's several models rather than just issuing debt. And another thing too, I just want to clarify, when I say a new arena, a like-for-like facility, 60,000 square feet, 800 to 1,000 square feet per square foot in dollars, the 100 million is when you add all the other amenities in addition to an arena, which includes a curling rink, which includes all the facilities that other people in this community have asked for. There is high demand for additional community space. Gymnasium, fitness centers, field houses. When you start adding up all those amenities, that's where you get to that $100 million figure. It's not just for a new arena. A new arena is going to be anywhere, again, between 40, 50, 52 million based on how much a square foot. Thank you, Andy.
Okay, thanks. And I'd just
You
like
bet.
to say, before I leave, a quick thanks to Steve Black and Evan. I complained for years about we need a shuttle service that's better here as the town grows. And let me tell you, if you bother these guys enough, they might not guarantee they'll do it, but they'll listen, and they did it. And
Want me to ask him myself?
yeah, for sure. They
No.
will listen, no guarantee.
Let's see if they'll listen.
Yeah,
On
here
that
we
note,
go.
I'm going to go take the shuttle home and have less impact.
All right, thank you, Andy.
That's pretty basic what I was going to follow up on. How many places have you been how many people have you asked if they will build this arena here? And how many, I haven't seen anything, on media or anything on advertised anywhere. So I am kind of like, oh, is this a new idea? Maybe it is, I don't know. But I think a lot of small communities don't have their own rec centers. They're owned by somebody else. Even Toronto doesn't own their own rec center. They play hockey in Rogers Building. So I'm sure that there could be other things, like you say, many other suggestions. And furthermore, if in fact we got somebody like that to do something, you don't have to rip that other building down. That could be the curling rink. If you put posts down the middle of that building there, underneath every beam, you got a building that's 3 times as strong as it is now. Just put posts in the middle, and you got 4 rinks. Not 2, but 4, 5 or 6 maybe. So there's other things that come into play if you build a new building. You don't have to rip the old one down. Any questions on that? Any answers on that?
Oh, I've got lots.
You liked it?
Oh, I like it.
Okay.
We can do it 2 ways. We can do it now or tomorrow at A&W.
Okay. Anyways, yeah, if you have any, I would just like to know where, I have contacts.
No,
believe me, in my 50 years of construction, I have some contact, believe me, and then some of them pretty high. That's $60 million is like peanuts for them.
Yeah.
So-
No, in fairness to George, I mean, we've talked about this. I am a partnerships aficionado. It's the only way to fix infrastructure. I've had preliminary discussions with at least 4 groups from the private sector, but we want to honor the survey. The survey's going out. We want to hear from the people. Council hasn't made a decision. Tonight's all about talking about the Revelstoke Forum, but there are discussions going on with possible potential partners. We would go to an RFP if we decided to go there. We would go out to the marketplace and find the best possible partner, but we want to hear from the public first. That's why the survey's first.
Oh, I appreciate that. But you know what? The first guy I'd approach would be Mr. Glardy.
Thanks, George.
Thanks to everybody. So I have a couple questions, comments, I guess. Following up on George's point, I think he's right. Bernanke grew up here. We built the arena. I think that there's a lot to be said for local. I think that there's more than enough talent in Revelstoke to do that, given the opportunity. What is unclear from the slides, because I can't see that far from the back, the number that's being presented to renovate the arena, $26 million, does the cost to the taxpayer include just the debt servicing, or does it include the capital replacement and the operating? Because if it doesn't, then we are on the hook for that much more. So I'm curious, what is that number? It's $215 for an average house of 860?
Yeah. Great question. So the 215 finances the 25 million, which just finances the capital. That doesn't include future capital. It does not include operating. Now, one of the questions on Slido, and I was going to get to, so good segue, is the annual cost to operate the arena right now, Lori? $700,000 per year. Is it the net or the gross operating, like the expenses? Operating. So currently the Revelstoke Forum costs $700,000 a year to operate. If we were to borrow $25 million and renovate, it's still going to be $800,000. That debt doesn't include financing operating, and it doesn't include future capital. However, back to the 2% that we are asking the residents to pay each year, that's roughly 1.2 million. That's going into a dedicated arena reserve. Regardless if we renovate or build new, we will have a pot of money by 2030, roughly 7 million to access. We can leverage that by getting another grant for 7 million. Then we're at 14, or maybe a grant for 20 million. We're at 27 million. Then it takes the load off the debt. Does that make sense?
Correct. So what I want to know is, will it be clear on the survey, on the information that goes to the public, what is the actual cost to the taxpayer? Because 215, if that is just the debt, that is not taking into account capital replacement or the operating,
And also, it's one thing to say it's a percentage, or sorry, it's a dollar amount per $860,000 house. What does that relate to in tax percentage? Because every year, bar maybe one in the last 10, 15 years, the taxes have gone up. So and at the end of the day, council will have to make a decision on what percentage. It's always a shell game from business, residential, however that mix goes. All the taxpayer is going to see at the end of the day as a percentage. I would have expected to see a lot more people here tonight if they knew what this would impact on their taxes. Because at the end of the day, the credit card is only got so much room on the limit. And as some have said before, we still need a bridge. We still need a few other things.
Yep.
I would also wonder if the bridge goes out tomorrow, not saying that it will, how much does the city borrow for that? 30 million for that. And that's a non-negotiable must do. There is no other choice unless you want to get a bunch of paddle boats out. So when we're considering the amount of money to spend, we also got to be considering the other key pieces of infrastructure that may potentially all happen at once, which would be Mr. Black's nightmare, I'm sure. So at the end of the day, I play hockey. I enjoy playing hockey. I grew up here, I was born and raised here. But there is only so much money to go around. Yes, tourism's coming in here. Andy made a great point. There's tourism coming. There's lots of people coming here. That survey should be made very clear whether you are local or you are visitor. Nothing against the visitors, but the locals are the ones that pay the taxes. And if we're having all this tourism come in here, there needs to be ways to lobby, whether it's through MRDT funding, whether it's through other means. Tourism is beneficial to the town, and I know there's lots of businesses that rely on it, but they are not paying taxes for the infrastructure that they are using. And so that needs to be considered. I think it needs to be crystal clear on the survey and in all communication, not just what the debt cost is, but what the life cycle, the operation, and the tax percentage implication overall, because otherwise I think people are going to be going and making decisions without all of the correct information.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And as we prepare for the ultimate referendum question, it is incumbent on the municipality to make sure that the information is crystal clear, because you have to make an informed decision when it comes to financing facilities. So thank you for that. Welcome.
Hi, thanks. Stefan, just a question with those cracks. Is epoxy injection some sort of feasible repair?
Yeah, we've pondered that. Have you seen it done?
Well, I'm only referencing it because I know of concrete getting epoxy injected to prevent cracks from mitigating even more and binding the concrete together. So I just thought, well, it's a crack, and the wood has been laminated with a glue, I'm assuming, so forcing glue back into those cracks to try to bond the two ends back together. It's just a thought.
Yeah.
I'm not an engineer.
No,
just
I've looked through a lot of things, trying to figure out many things. I've asked questions of people that make glue lamps, and they really don't want to talk about glue lamps coming apart. So
they want to manufacture new ones.
They want to make new ones, and of all crazy things I've seen, if you go down to Richmond to the
Oval.
Yeah,
Richmond's
it's
speed skating oval.
Yeah, it's the speed skating. Well, it's that building, right? They've got like 5 hockey rinks and just.
Yeah, it's the old oval. Yep.
Yeah. So if you ever go there, look up in the ceiling, right? There's a big glue lambs going across.
I
There's-
think that was a big talk when they were
Yeah,
building it, is
yeah.
that, oh, we're using lumber to build this thing, and
Those are steel beams with glue lamb stickers on them.
there we go.
So,
There is some wood in it.
yeah, pretty alarming to me. Like I went down there and I thought, oh, those look pretty cool. And I started looking and you can see the joints. You can see that the end of the sticker, it's a vertical line where the boards come together in a joint. It's a sticker. Crazy as that may seem.
So
As
I-
best I can tell,
One more thing I
anyway.
can comment about that, we fixed Memorial Arena in Penticton. With that method, it was only the very ends of the glue lambs that were damaged. We brought a specialist in from Australia, we got it all done. It's very good for very small localized areas, but over the length of this entire beam and all the beams, it would actually be cheaper to add steel to it.
Matt, when doing those steel beams that you plan to put in, will that include seismic upgrades for where they get supported into the
Yes.
ground?
Yes.
Okay. And has a contingency plan been made while you do that work in the summer for organizations that usually use the arena in the summer to be someplace else?
I didn't think about the summer. I was just thinking
Yeah.
about
Because-
hockey.
yes,
Yeah, because it's
yes,
something
hockey,
would.
yes, I agree. Hockey is the big.
Some would have to get shut down for
Yeah.
4 or 5 months.
So there
at
hasn't
a
been
time.
any contingency plan thought of for summer operation?
I mean, they would be interrupted service without question. There would be no, the arena would be shut down, starting in May, going till roughly September. I don't know if Lori can comment on contingency plans. We'd have to find other available community space to accommodate the summer users.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you. One of the questions I just want to, I see the gal in the back who brought up the healthcare issue. Hello. I just got a text from the mayor, and he just wanted to share that he's had discussions with Interior Health working on upgrades to QVH to house a CT scanner. It will be a few years out, so he just wanted to share that. And just quickly, one of the questions, where would the new arena be located? Back to the survey, there's 4 options. You'll see that on the survey. Please fill that out. 3 of which are municipal, 1 is private. We're looking at all options, but that's specific questions on the survey. Grant.
One quick question. Hope the referendum is for taxpayers only and not for the general public?
Yes. Just mindful of time. We're approaching 9 o'clock. I want to make sure everyone gets a chance. If the new arena became, oh, I lost it. Will the annual tax increase amount decrease if more properties are added over the next 30 years? Will the annual tax increase amount decrease if more properties are added over the next 30 years? I think I understand the question. If the assessment pie grows, the overall assessment, therefore the more taxes that are collected, will that annual tax to fund the capital decrease? No, it'll just be fixed for 30 years at that set amount. Now, there are opportunities to reduce debt, which will bring that amount down, but whatever debt's issued, that fixed amount stays as long as the term of the debt. So if the debt's 20 years or 30 years, that 215 if it's reno, that 345 if it's new, will be fixed. So if there's new properties added, that adds more money to reserves and fund other things, but the debt associated to either renovation or new construction is fixed, subject to electoral consent. Next.
I just forgot about this one question. I know we talk about the bridge, and heaven forbid, we don't want to see the bridge collapse. But if the bridge did collapse, are we able to access emergency provincial funds to fix it?
Yeah, great question. And the answer is yes. So I talk about electoral consent on infrastructure. So in the event that the bridge collapsed and we needed 30 million, we would go and seek a ministerial order from the province to allow us to borrow the money, subject to no grants available or no assistance from the federal or provincial government, without electoral consent, because it's an emergency measure and it's critical infrastructure. And the province is being more flexible on critical infrastructure not being bound by electoral consent. A lot of municipalities are not getting infrastructure approved because referendums are failing. And so there's changes in legislation that allow certain infrastructure to just proceed because it's critical, and allows the government at the time to simply get the job done. Referendums are costly. They cost roughly $50,000 to hold, and a lot of projects have been stalled. I should also mention, and I would be remiss not to, the gentleman before talked about, the tourists should have to pay. And that's something that residents have said very clearly to council. Why is it the resident paying all these facilities? The challenge we have is the basic, and back to other sources of revenue, the basic tourism levy in Revelstoke is the MRDT. And the MRDT is the hotel tax, which is now at 3%. Each year, the city of Revelstoke, as the designated recipient, is now receiving just under $2 million in MRDT funds. But they're very specific, and they do not allow currently for capital recreation facilities. There is a push with the resort municipalities, there's 14 of us, the Whistlers, the Tofinos, the Revelstokes, the Goldens, to expand the criteria of MRDT to allow municipalities to pull MRDT funds to apply it to debt servicing for rec centers, because rec centers are enjoyed by the tourist, and it's less money from the taxpayer. Right now, we don't have that approval, but there is a strong push. I sit on a committee. There is a strong push to have the province relax those criteria to allow some funds to go toward capital construction. We're lucky. It's a sizable amount of money. When you're only collecting $200,000, $300,000 a year in hotel tax revenue, it doesn't go very far. But we have a very robust hotel sector, and we know that we attract tourists from all over the world. That is an amazing source of funds that continues to grow each year, and it would be nice to tap in to pay for some of these tourist-related facilities. Let's see if I can wrap up two more. Will the annual, what is the city doing right now to ensure we don't end up as a preventable catastrophic headline due to infrastructure failure at our arena? Why should the public feel confident the arena is structurally safe? I live with that every day. I mean, that is the responsibility of the city staff to ensure public safety. And we simply rely on our experts, implement a very robust, responsible snow removal program, be proactive, not reactive. If we have any doubts that the system is going to be compromised, the trusses, we just shut down the facility. It's a very tough, responsible position to be in when all of our city staff, including myself, are responsible for the safety of all residents on all our facilities, whether it's a swimming pool or an arena. We simply just go with what the experts tell us. And the experts are very clear. There's a serious aging problem in the arena. It's been documented for the last 30 years. We're challenged by the new price and the industry cost to replace these facilities, the price pressures, and we have to balance that with the ability to pay. But every day, I always ask myself, is it going to be the perfect storm? And I have to make sure that Lori and her team have a plan in place that in the event of a bad weather event, no one's even allowed near the Revelstoke Forum. Just basically listen to the experts. And that's why we're trying to, I wish it was 2012, it's 2026. I wish we had a reserve of 30 million. We only have a reserve of 3 million. That's all we have. And I wish there were grants of 20 million. I think the most we can expect right now is 5 million. And we're at $800 to $1,000 a square foot. And so we have to act responsible and monitor the arena. Yes, it could last another 10 years. We don't know the actual end date of that facility, but we do know the trusses are failing. We do know that. And the experts have told us that. So we have to be responsible and make sure we've got a plan, and that's why we're trying to accelerate this question. Renovate, new construction. And it starts with the survey. We have municipal elections this fall. There's going to be a referendum question coming. We want to hear back from you on the survey on what the preferred choices are. And we're hoping tonight you have a better understanding of the tax implications and what we've heard tonight from our panel experts. So with that, I'd like to thank you all for coming, and staff, and thank the public for coming out tonight. Thank you very much. For those that have asked questions on Slido, we've got them recorded, and we'll make sure that we share the answers online, and we'll have those answers provided to you. Thank you.